Oh, you know what I love?
Sports.
Love sports.
Sports.
When it comes to
Texas A&M.
Where are you getting this information?
Let me tell you.
Welcome to TexAgs.
TexAgs Live.
I feel like I should be listening to the theme song from the Jeffersons. You know, we're moving on up.
We will develop men. We will graduate players, and we will win championships on the field.
The best way for us to win is to do it together.
He is a guy that has gotten better and better and better. He's just got that dog in him.
This one's special. The 12th man this past week was unbelievable.
And this is a real program. It's not fake. This is a real place. And if you want to be really good at football, this is a really good place to be.
You know, if I'm betting on anybody, it's the Aggies.
Yesterday was a huge day for the college football American public.
Yeah.
It is TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Go Hour, presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. He's Olin Buchanan. He's smiling. I'm David Nuño. I'm smiling. OB, number 14 in the college football playoff rankings.
Fair.
I didn't watch. I had other television appointments. But I got the alert, and I read, and I was interested. And I don't care because what Coach Elko said on Monday, and let me just read it, and then we can kind of take it from there. I would imagine that if we win our next 3 games, everything will take care of itself.
It will. That's fair, and it's actually a good spot because, again, you just need to be in the top 12, and you're only 2 out, and you've got an open date to watch other teams in front of you lose. You've got a game you're going to win the next week against New Mexico State to watch other teams lose, and then a game you should win against Auburn. And then I think it'll come down to that game against Texas like we talked about yesterday.
Yeah, there's always like how you can look at things. But a bye week coming, and I'd say at a good time, it always comes at a good time. But because of the injury to Le'Veon Moss, I think it allows Colin Klein to go back to the lab and figure out, all right, now that we have a bye week, now that we know it is Marcel Reed, now that we know that it's going to be Amari Daniels, now that we know this is our personnel for the next 3 games, let's tinker with it and make it their offense.
Right. I wonder if they will incorporate more sprint outs and rollouts and bootlegs and things like that that you have basically 2 weeks to work on.
Right.
I'm not saying completely, but just add some packages like that feature those kind of things just to take advantage of Marcel's skill set.
Yeah, it's so I'm going to ask you a couple questions about the team.
Okay.
Let's kind of digest. And by the way, if you want to be a part of the conversation, you can do it. You can call us up 979-693-1150. That is the Boss Firearms hotline, or you can text us on the Little Sluggers text line. Little Sluggers is age-appropriate baseball. Fundamental classes in Aggieland, Houston, Austin, Brenham for kids 2 to 8. Sign up for a free trial at cotosports.com. That is cotosports.com. All right, so let's ask you a couple things. What do you think has been the biggest issue this season? If you were to say, fix this, things are better. And by the way, things are good at 7-2. But if you were to say, this is what we need to fix.
Oh, gosh. I got about 3 things that come to mind. The biggest issue
You can give me 3. I don't care.
Well, okay.
America.
Not necessarily. Yes, it is, by gosh. Not in no particular order. All right. Too many penalties. Work on that. Getting the communication issues that they say has been the culprit in giving up the big plays. Because they give up too many big chunk plays. And they say it's communication issues. And then the inconsistency, for lack of a better word, the erratic passing game.
Yep, I'd say quarterback play, especially the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 3 games, right? That's what, Mississippi State, LSU, and South Carolina. You've gotten 1/2 of good quarterback play in those games.
Yeah, what we call really good, really good. And it was because Marcel was really good in that second half against LSU.
And
I think he was.
Connor was not good in the first half.
No.
And then against South Carolina, he wasn't efficient. He wasn't good in the second half. Like, the team wasn't good offensively.
Against South Carolina, I thought Marcel was he was sound.
But the second half, I'm
up
saying.
until the interception.
Yeah.
I mean, not great.
And then South Carolina. Mississippi State.
Yeah, I thought Connor was
okay.
very mediocre.
Yep.
And he would say that too.
So I would say quarterback play has been hit and miss in games, the last 3 games that I can think of, right? Hit
very
and
fair.
And then before Mississippi State, was that Arkansas?
Gosh.
No, Missouri.
Yeah, Missouri.
Missouri,
Yeah.
fantastic.
Connor was fantastic.
Fantastic. Before that, Arkansas?
Sound.
Really good in the fourth quarter, which was really the Le'Veon Moss quarter. So I guess my point is getting more consistent quarterback play for 4 quarters. Consistent. Because there have been some highs. Like, oh my, you look at what Missouri, like, my goodness, that Connor Wigman wins you 12 games. Marcel Reed against LSU, that Marcel Reed wins you 12 games. But there's been the other halves as well.
There has been. And, big part of it is playing better opponents too. But you don't want to just be good against inferior teams. You want to be good against the good teams.
You want to be good against the good teams, and you want to be good in the fourth quarter. For the most part, A&M has been outside of the South Carolina game, and I guess the Notre Dame game. The 2 losses, they didn't win the fourth quarter.
Right.
All right, the next one. What position group do you think we need more from?
Receivers, probably.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Comes to mind.
Would you be surprised to know that Jabri Barber leads the team in receptions?
No, but only because, as you know, I update stats every week. I do it by hand.
Do you think that would surprise our audience?
Yeah, I think so. But then if you're really watching the team, you're thinking, yeah, but what receiver has had a big year? Because Noah was looking like he was about to break out and be the guy, but then he only had 1 catch. Of course, they only threw against LSU, but they only had a few receptions anyway. So it's been. What wasn't it? Cyrus Allen early that was doing some things, and then there was Noah, and one time I think Ja'Day Walker came in and had a big game, and now, but Barber's really come on, and it might be surprising because he wasn't even available for the first two and a half games.
Right. He's got 25 receptions, while Noah Thomas has 24, and I would like to see more from Noah Thomas.
Yeah,
because he's had his moments. He's absolutely had his moments.
He has. Definitely.
All right. Let's see.
Love that catch he had against LSU.
What position group do you think has been the biggest surprise? There could be more than one.
To me, it's still the offensive line, and it will be. The offensive line has, I would say, grades out at a very solid B to B plus.
Yep.
Right? And consider where they came from.
They were a D, C.
Yeah, a D easily. And then you also have to factor in that you lost now a starting center. Mm-hmm. You've lost arguably your best offensive lineman for a few games in Chase Pasantes. So you've had to, it would be one thing. It'd be remarkable enough if you were able to play the same starting 5 every week like you did in 2020.
Sure.
And they were so good. But the improvement they've made while also having to deal with injuries is, I think, remarkable.
So I always give Buzz Williams credit for diagnosing a problem and fixing it mid-season. Mm-hmm. Okay, he's really good at that.
Yeah, he is.
A couple years ago it was free throws. By the end of the year, they were hitting free throws. He's very good at that. I'm going to assume and give credit to Mike Elko being the same way. All right, we're not tackling well? Guess what we're going to do the rest of the season? We're going to tackle like a bunch of I don't even know what
tacklers.
Tacklers. Yeah, we're going to tackle like tacklers. That'd be a good shirt.
Yeah.
Would you wear that shirt?
Yeah.
Feels right?
Yeah. Let's tackle like tacklers.
Maroon. It would be better maroon, yeah. Anyway, that's going to be worked on. Maybe there will be some tackling issues. We will not see what we saw in South Carolina again. That's my hot sports take. We will not see that again this season.
Well, I sure hope not. Plus, as we've talked about, at least part of that is because you're not going to see a quarterback with the physical stature of Lenore Sellers.
Yeah.
But your point is they're going to drill it into their heads about being more physical.
Because it wasn't just Lenore's; it was Rocket Sanders too.
Yeah. Well, he can do that to a lot of people. But yes, you've got to. not as many arm tackles and hoping somebody will go down.
An elite defense doesn't give up those plays, right?
Right.
And I think they're going to get back to being an elite defense.
And good tacklers or good teams, they don't want to just hit you and make contact. They want to hit you and drive you back. And I think in that game, A&M was like, I made contact.
Right.
Why are you not going down? Why are you still fighting me?
So I don't believe the New Mexico State quarterback is going to be what we saw from Lenore Sellers. It's just a guess.
Yeah, I'm guessing. I don't even know who it is. I know who it was, and I'm glad it's no longer there.
That's true. I don't know, but maybe they're a quarterback powerhouse development program. Who knows? But I don't think it's going to be Lenore Sellers.
I don't either.
Okay. The Thorniac, not the Torniac, the Thorniac, Peyton Thorne, I don't think he can move like Lenore Sellers. That's just my guess from watching him play 10, 12 games. Okay? You think Peyton Thorne runs like Lenore Sellers?
No, I don't.
Okay. Quinnivan Ewers, I don't believe he runs like Lenore Sellers.
No, he does.
Okay.
That's not a shot at him.
No, he's an excellent thrower of the football. Okay?
But he doesn't run.
And he's got great athletes to throw to. So I'm just saying, if the Texas offensive line has had some struggles this year, I hope that continues on November 30th. So you're not going to deal with a running quarterback. So then let's go back to the A&M quarterback situation. Because Texas has got a good defense, okay?
Allegedly.
You're going to have to play better at the quarterback position for more than 2 quarters against Auburn and against Texas. You're going to have to.
And then probably Georgia.
I remember telling you before South Carolina.
Or maybe Ole Miss. What?
I remember telling you before South Carolina. I was like, I think we can beat Georgia. Because we're watching the Florida game, and I'm like, I think we can beat them.
Yeah, Ole Miss might.
And then South Carolina happened, and I'm like, I don't know.
Well, look, I've said it before. We've said it before. This Texas A&M football team is good enough to beat any team on the schedule or that might be on the schedule, but they're not good enough to just show up and assume they're going to beat anybody.
I'm going to tell you, here's another hot sports take. A&M cannot get into the college football playoffs winning 4 straight games with 2 quarters of good offense. They can't. With these 4 games, they're going to need more than 2 quarters of good offense.
Yes.
So 2.5? Maybe.
No, give me, it's time to start putting it together complete games. That doesn't mean you have to score every time you get the ball like they did against.
But how do you do that without your best running back, your best offensive player?
You know what? The next man up. No one's going to feel sorry for you. We had to talk about Texas. Texas is having a good year.
Yep.
They lost their top 2 running backs before the season, or one of them before the season started, much like A&M, and then one early in the year. And they've continued to have a good year. So
find a way.
You find a way. You block a little bit harder as a receiver. You run your route a little bit crisper. You work harder to catch balls in traffic as a quarterback. You take you have that run opportunity. You take it. You find. You just play better. The defense. You play harder. You tackle better. Mm-hmm. You see a guy going by. Past you don't let him go. You follow him and cover harder. Everybody works harder to compensate for a big loss.
We're in the holistic planning cool zone.
Now nobody's going to work harder than them to try to help you invest in pro sports.
Which means like normal people.
Yeah.
Normal dudes. Let's call them
like normal Americans.
Little Johnny. All right, not Johnny Manziel, but just little Johnny.
Yeah, little Johnny.
He's 20. All right.
Okay.
He's 24.
Now he's big Johnny, but okay.
Yeah, I mean he's gained a little weight, but I don't talk about people's size. He can invest in pro sports thanks to our friends at Holistic Planning because normal people can't.
So
invest in prosports.com.
What sport team would you invest in?
The NFL.
Real Madrid?
No. Well, Real Madrid's owned by the people.
Oh.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Green Bay Packers.
So should you be able to invest in it then?
I should. I can, actually. I know people who...
You're a person.
Yeah, but Real Madrid's having a really rough start to the season, so let's move on from that topic.
It might be the good time to invest. Buy low, sell high.
All right, let's go around the room and say hi to the people. We go behind the glass. We talk to Nick, always right Savage. Nick, good morning, buddy.
Always right? Sorry. Oh, I see what you did there. Yeah, if I could kind of bounce off what y'all were talking about just really quickly. I'm not going to give you super in-depth thoughts, but biggest issue this season, big plays. That's mine. That's what I thought of as y'all were going through it. Need more from the receivers. I agree with you, OB, there. And the group that has exceeded my expectations, the secondary, the entire secondary has really impressed me so far this season. So, like you said, I guess the biggest thing that I hope that gets worked on in the bye week, tackling. Like you said, hopefully they just lock in on that tackling and don't see that going forward. So the big plays is what Nick says.
Yeah.
And that has, I mean, even if you look at this most recent game, those touchdowns, like the Lenore Sellers' first touchdown, those were biggish plays.
Oh, there were so many of them. You know, 50-something yard run. Remember the one it wasn't a touchdown, but they throw a little swing pass out into the left flat, and I can't even remember who the DB or linebacker was. I think it's a linebacker, and he hits the guy and has his arms around. It looks like he's wearing like a cape, and the guy just shucks him and keeps on going down. But yeah, you got to stop that.
Wasn't there a play similar to that where Lenore Sellers, it wasn't a big play, but it was a big enough play to be a backbreaker when the Lenore Sellers, I think it was a 3rd and long, and he scrambled for a first down, and he like linebackered his way to the first down. Like
yes. In fact, I think it was BJ Mays that he hit over on the A&M sideline.
Yeah.
Right. So, or maybe it was the South Carolina sideline. Anyway, the sideline closest to us. Yeah, I do remember that.
You know, Aggies gather at the Angry Elephant, especially last night.
Yeah, they may not be as angry.
Yeah, well,
you know, those elephants.
Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Caitlin Torn is there. Caitlin, good morning.
Good morning. How are y'all?
I'm well.
We're doing well.
Good.
Excellent.
Actually, I'm sleepy. I'm
very sleepy.
It was a late night.
I was watching a lot of television, like PBS and National Geographic,
2 a.m.
Disney Channel.
Yeah, I was definitely watching reruns of that Disney Channel show that I love.
That one that you love. Duh. Well, we've already got some text in talking about Marcel Reed at quarterback, and Edward in Austin says Reed's running threat softens the blow of losing Moss.
If you find a way to fully capitalize on it.
100%. 100%. And again, I think this few days off, or this bye week, can allow them to regroup and think, how can we do what's best for this offense with Amari Daniels and E.J. Smith and Marcel Reed?
Torn, what do you think is the biggest issue?
I'd say probably the receivers too.
Okay. All right.
But I've good vibes coming in at 14.
Well, we could use some good vibes at 14.
Yeah. What else do you have for us?
We also had a rough weekend on the basketball end. Both the men's and women's basketball teams dropped their opening games of the season. The men's team lost 61-64 on the road at UCF, snapping a 23-game win streak in season openers, and the women's team faced A&M Corpus Christi at Reed Arena, losing 56-62.
Well, we're going to talk about that for a few minutes with Tom Schuberth at 8:35. He'll be in studio. Good old Tom.
You know what I think is a colossal missed opportunity in marketing is UCF. It's in Orlando, right?
Yep.
If I was in charge of UCF, like the president or something, I would have them change the name of the school from Central Florida to the University of Florida at Orlando, go by UFO, and change my mascot to like the ETs or the aliens.
I kind of like what you did there. I like that speaks
that's
my
what I
language.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to Roswell?
I've not.
Would you go?
Yeah, I'd go.
Yeah.
Area 51,
Yeah.
right?
Do you believe in UFOs or like aliens? I don't know if we should go down this route. I'm just curious. In fact, don't hold that thought. I don't want to get a phone. I don't want to get taken to HR. Let's hit a break.
Because I'm going to say something that's going to get us all in trouble.
I started asking. I was like, wait, I shouldn't have gone that direction. So, anywho.
Yeah, that's kind of an illegal question.
Yeah, that was my fault. Let's talk Prize Picks. PrizePicks.com /TexAgs. Use the code TexAgs. Receive guaranteed $50 once you play in $5 lineups. I have no segue to Prize Picks with UFOs, but let's just say the ETs, right? They have a great quarterback. You can do more than or less than their projected stat projections. What is another alien that I could do?
Another alien that you can do? I don't know. Just how many like rushing yards? Like how many rushing yards are you?
How many rushing yards does Yoda have? Right?
Does Yoda?
Yeah. Are you friends with Yoda? Team Yoda?
I never actually met him. Never actually.
You guys didn't go to high school together?
Never him. I met.
No. Well played, sir. By the way, they got a lot of great stuff. They have the live squares. They have Flex Friday, Taco Tuesday. New user offer that I've been telling you about. Play $5, get $50 once you win or lose by using the code TexAgs. By going to prizepicks.com /TexAgs. Again, that code is TexAgs.
What's up, TexAgs? This commercial break is brought to you by my good friends over at Aggieland Chevrolet, the official automotive sponsor of TexAgs.com and me, Billy Liucci. Greg Gunn is the proud owner of Aggieland Chevrolet and invites you to visit the dealership to experience true Aggie hospitality. From their friendly staff to the experienced service team, Aggieland Chevrolet is TexAgs approved. Check out the dealership off of Highway 6 in Bryan or go to AggielandChevrolet.com and tell them Billy Liucci sent you by.
We are back here on TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We're in the Rollo Insurance Studio. It is the Go Hour, presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. He is Olin Buchanan. I am David Nuño. I am. Obi, let's do some games that you want to watch this weekend.
Yeah, these are the games that I'd be watching. Some, including you, may have different games, but these are the ones that I feel like I'd be watching. How about Michigan at number 8, Indiana? Michigan, yes, they're only slightly above average, right?
Yeah.
They're 5-4, but they're still one of the better teams Indiana will face. Indiana's undefeated, but their opponents are a combined 34-45. I think they played 2 teams with 5-4 records, Washington and Nebraska maybe.
Yeah.
And so Michigan at least is a team that you would think can make them work, challenge them a little bit. So that might be interesting. How about this one?
Well, let me ask a question.
Okay,
it has nothing to do with this, but it just hit me while you were talking. And this is probably going to upset people. Has A&M ever had a week where they have stormed the court and the field within 48 hours of each other?
The field and no, I can't think.
Has that ever happened? It just hit me in the moment like, wait, in the last few days, we've seen South Carolina rush the field and UCF rush the court.
Yeah. No, I don't think so because when was the last time I saw A&M rush the court? Was it when they beat Alabama? When Alabama was ranked number 1?
I think they rushed the field. Oh, you talking about for basketball?
For basketball.
Yeah, might have been that one.
Yeah, and I can't remember. That would have been late, so it couldn't have been the same week as a football game.
Yeah, that would have been January, February, March. So
yeah, and when they rushed the field, if it happened, I know it didn't happen.
I can't imagine it's happened very much in history for any school.
It'd have to happen late in the football season.
Yeah.
And then early in the basketball season. So like when they beat Alabama that year in 2021.
That was early October. They hadn't started yet.
No basketball. So
A&M didn't rush the court when they beat them in basketball. I remember that. Yeah, They did not do that.
Maybe one time when they beat Kentucky, again, late.
I don't think it's ever happened. It just hit me in the middle of the sentence. And I was just finding like, wow, we matter. Yeah. Even though, Anyway, continue on. Sorry for that thought. It just hit me mid-thought.
Here's one. Number 9, BYU at Utah. Look, a lot of casual college football fans may not know this, but this is actually, Utah and BYU, one of the nastiest, and I mean nastiest rivalries in college football.
Yeah.
You're talking about two fan bases that hate each other. And one of the reasons why is, quite frankly, I've actually read this in Sports Illustrated and things, and then experienced to a certain degree, that BYU is the school of a certain religion, and they feel like that if you don't go to BYU, you are lesser of that religion than if you go to Utah. And so this BYU looks down on Utah, and so Utah wants to beat BYU bad, and so it's really kind of nasty. And now it's a conference game again. They used to be in the, I guess, Mountain West Conference together. So now it's a conference game again. So it means even more. And BYU's trying to maintain its status in the college football playoff rankings, which came out last night.
Yep.
And Utah's trying to hanging by a thread to stay in the Big 12 race. So, that's a game with a lot at stake.
Let's go to Lubbock.
Yeah.
Deion Sanders' favorite
that's
place.
not said, a sentence that isn't said often, but you can say it this week. Let's go to Lubbock to watch Colorado, number 21, against Texas Tech. Colorado is in the Big 12 championship chase legitimately.
Hey, I got to give Deion props for turning it around this year, because after that first game, I'm like, I hope they lose every game, but they're winning some football.
Yeah, they're winning some football. They've gotten fortunate sometimes, and maybe the caliber of competition is somewhat questionable, even though they dang near beat Kansas State. No one's going to question that. So, they're getting better, and Texas Tech is trying to get back into contention in the Big 12 race. Look, take the over. Texas Tech leads the Big 12 in scoring offense. Did you know that?
I did not know.
Yeah, they're the highest scoring team in the Big 12. Of course, they're also one of the league's worst defenses against the pass, and Colorado leads the Big 12 in passing. So if you like touchdowns, you're probably going to see a lot of them in that game.
Yep. Let's move on to Georgia.
Oh, gosh, this is going to be a tough game to pick on Friday. Number 2, Georgia at number 16, Ole Miss.
I'm struggling with that one myself because I feel like Ole Miss has fixed a lot of their issues.
Yeah. And the stats, if you look at stats, the stats, without a doubt, favor Ole Miss.
Yep.
Georgia's defense is good, but has been kind of, I don't want to say up and down, but inconsistent.
Yep.
Their offense,
definitely
you don't know what you're going to get. It's like the box of chocolates from Forrest Gump. You know what? Whereas
you know what you're going to get from Ole Miss.
Ole Miss is explosive, and they're playing good defense. So statistically, man, I'm taking away. Except then you just, but doesn't Georgia just rise to the occasion like a championship team will?
They do. So what happens if Georgia loses? What's their path to get to Atlanta? They would need, everybody would have 2 losses, right? I mean, except for Texas.
Right, and then even if Texas
Alabama would have the tiebreaker over Georgia with 2 losses, right?
Yeah, and of course and we're going to get to Alabama in a minute.
And LSU's only got 1 loss in SEC play. A&M's got one loss in SEC play.
Texas.
Got one loss. So
Tennessee. Who'll be playing Georgia pretty soon. So there's still a lot of things to go on. But that's a big game. Georgia. Oh, if Ole Miss loses, they're eliminated.
That's right. They are.
Because they have 2 losses already.
Let's do the biggest game. And I think I was talking to Billy about this, but there's a part of me that wants to see LSU win because of what, it would just make A&M's win matter more. But at the same time, it doesn't matter. A&M's got to win their game. So who cares what these teams do?
Yeah, number 11 Alabama, number 14 LSU. Back in the day, this game frequently decided the SEC West Division winner. Now it's just kind of an elimination game for the SEC championship game. Alabama and LSU still, they have issues. They don't like each other, stemming from the whole Nick Saban thing and how competitive they've always been against each other at night. It's going to be a crazy atmosphere. I think I know at least one LSU guy that'll probably be drunk and arrested and all those things. So, and like I said, Alabama has 2 losses. They're trying to stay in the picture of the SEC championship game possibilities. LSU is with another. If they get a second loss, they're probably out of the playoff picture because that'll be 3 losses unless they win the conference championship.
How long has it been? Sorry to interject here, but how long has it been where these 2 teams were ranked so low? Like normally I feel like they're both in the top 10, and this year they're both in the top, teens. Teens.
Yeah, good point. But I mean, it's still, pretty good, 11 and 14. But yeah, usually one of them's in the top 10.
What do you think Sankey is going to be thinking if A&M, Ole Miss, I don't know who else, Bama, LSU, one of them is in the SEC championship game with their 2 losses, and they lose that game, and they're eliminated from the college football playoffs, but teams that didn't get there get in. Do you think that'll make him pause and be like, I don't know about this conference championship game?
No, because conference championship game gets a lot of money, and he's going to be able to say, but even if somebody's eliminated by losing in the conference championship game, there's still going to be other SEC teams ready to step in. And I don't think he'll worry about it unless, of course, that team that gets eliminated is Texas. He seems to have a Dan Beebe-like affinity for Texas.
I just think it's an interesting point that you are not penalized. Obviously, there's a great pride in going to the SEC championship game.
Great opportunity.
Great opportunity, right? But if you are Tennessee or one of the other teams that has 2 losses, you're like, I don't really want to play Georgia again. Let's just say it was Georgia, right? I don't want to play them again. I'd rather just stay right here and get in. And that's not, I don't think that's how it should be.
Yeah, I agree. It should be like maybe if you get into the championship game, that shouldn't.
That loss can elevate you but not hurt you.
Right, like the standings should be complete before the championship game.
Yes, the standings.
Yeah, so
it's just a champion. Yeah,
and that doesn't change. The only way it changes is if the champion gets in.
Right.
And then if somebody that wasn't in the top 12, which I can't imagine they wouldn't be, but let's say you're 15 and you won your conference championship, then all the teams in your conference drop 1 spot in the order.
I just think it's going to be an interesting conversation moving forward when that happens, because it's probably going to happen this year.
Good. Yeah. Very good. Very well good.
All right. We'll hit a break. We'll talk to Tom Schuberth on the other side, a little basketball before we drop the 8 o'clock hour. 1775. Look, I'm going to keep it classy this week when it comes to 1775 because they represent our military. That's where their name comes from. And the food is fantastic. And the people that work there, the co-owners, Brad and Brandon, and the whole crew, they are fantastic. Like they're just great. And when we talk about going to 1775, we talk about the food, but it's also the experience.
Yeah. Last time I was there, was carrying on a conversation with a couple people I've never met before and I'll never see again.
Yep.
But what bring people together is sitting down and having a great meal. And, next thing you know, you're, like in my case, I'm biting into those ribs and I have my wife with me and I make a face.
Yep.
And she says, oh, you must really love those. Oh, that's amazing. And this guy that I've never seen before, who was a trucker from like I think he said New York, says, oh, yeah, and this brisket, y'all eat like this all the time.
Yes, we do.
You know, that kind of, I said, well, not all the time, only when I go to 1775 because it's the best barbecue in town.
It is fantastic. And look, when I go, I leave extremely full and I leave with a doggy bag. That's just the facts.
Yeah, and happy.
And very happy. They're open Thursday through Saturday, 11 a.m. until they're sold out. Online ordering turns off at 10 a.m. 8203 Raymond Stosser Parkway in College Station. Call them up, 979-492-6241, or check out 1775txbbq.com. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. David Nuño, Olin Buchanan, Tom Schuberth. Tom, I don't know if you ever watched the show Curb Your Enthusiasm. Have you ever watched the show?
I've not very often. No.
All right, it's my favorite show, okay, my favorite comedy. And there's an episode years back, maybe 18 years ago, where Larry goes to his friend's house and they want to show him the new house. Oh, I want to show you. He's like, I get it. You got beams, you got this. But I feel like that lady on that show because I want you to, you've been a part of this in this new studio. I want to show it off. What do you think, man?
It's impressive. The backdrop is what really, I didn't know what was all out here, but watching on TV, you see the backdrop. This is big time. It's like, ESPN, Sports Center, all that. I like it.
Yeah, they modeled their studio after us, ladies and gentlemen. So Tom obviously covers A&M for us, and we break things down. Not the ideal start, and I hate to say it like this, not surprising.
Correct. I was so pleased for 35 minutes.
Yeah.
When after the 5-minute mark, when Wade hits that three-pointer, Buzz calls the timeout. We're up 9. He's getting his defense set. I said, now we're great. We got good free throw shooters, and we're ready to put this thing away. And it seemed like we just forgot what we were doing. And UCF typically is not one of those teams that battles back. And so I felt really good. But the only bad news is we lost. I think we'll learn from it, and we have opportunities. I was reading some of the things on TexAgs after the ball game. I don't think UCF's a tournament team personally. I mean, I may be wrong. I worked there 4 years, and I'd like to address OB's UFO comment. I kind of like that, but I think we can bounce back. Obviously, we're a good basketball team, and when we're at full strength, I think we're going to be really elite.
OB, let me jump in quickly.
Go ahead. Yeah.
When I say I'm not surprised, it's not a shot at them. It's just I know that this program, it seems like the last few years, it takes them a little while to get going. And that's where my not surprised by comment
Sure.
comes. And also on the road for your first game, it's...
Right. UCF had a brand new team, basically. So I thought they were the ones that were going to crack. We have the veterans. We have the 8 seniors. Of course, we're without Phelps, that I think he'll be a great addition when he comes back, give us another score. But it was a good outing other than the loss. I think they're going to learn from it. We've come back home, so hopefully we can get on the right track. And then we've got some tough games that are going to be wonderful for our rating to get us back on the right track.
What did you see that you liked the most from A&M? I know everybody's disappointed with the outcome, and we should be. But from a coach's standpoint, what did you see from that team that you said, okay, this is what I really like about what I saw in that game?
Well, I think every team's going to try to shut us down on the offensive boards. I mean, that's the number one thing people are going to do. And I thought we were still able to find a way to do that, so that was good. And then our defense, I thought our defense was good. We had a couple lapses, but for the most part, we're tough to score on. I mean, it's evident by the score. And because UCF doesn't play slow. They try to outscore people. That's been their knock over the years. They're kind of a soft team. But I thought that. And then, there's still a lot of question marks. I'm big on the right people taking the right shots at the right time. I don't like equal opportunity offense when you have a couple players that are so much more gifted offensively than the other guys. So not trying to be critical, but I thought maybe UCF's defense was designed to have some other guys shoot the ball. Solomon Washington gets 10 shots up. I don't think that's designed by Texas A&M. I don't know your thoughts on that.
No,
but,
look,
I was going to say, I think that Buzz typically, especially early in the year, when we want to see him go and get that win and get in the pocket, I think he uses a lot of games early as experimentation. And you see guys that are going to take more shots than they will later on. You see some guys that'll play more than they will later on. And I do. And I don't necessarily think that's a knock on him, but I think he approaches early games very often more experimental.
Sure. With a deep roster, there's a lot of question marks. Who's going to get into that rotation? Having 8 seniors that have all played and then bringing in 3 guys. Of course, some of those are seniors that have, been elite players on their other team. I mean, you're going to have to juggle your lineup every game and try to keep people happy. But you know what helps keep you happy? Winning.
Yeah.
And, playing at the highest level. So hopefully we can figure it out. I'm anxious to see some of these Oregon, Ohio State. I mean, we're playing some great teams that are also experienced and been in those positions. So it's going to be a fun season. I used the word drama when I was writing the article or maybe commenting to one of the people. It seemed like last year we had so much drama in our games, more so than any season I've been following the Ags. It just was every game went down to the last minute or so, or the last shot even. So hopefully we don't have as many of those, and we end up getting on the W side of most of the ball games.
Tom, I paid Buzz a compliment earlier in the show because I think one of the gifts that he really brings, I mean, obviously he brings a great culture, he develops players, that's for sure. The other thing he does is I think he's really good in season at self-diagnosing a problem and then working on that issue. So if it's, in one game is not necessarily representative of how the season's going to play out. But what do you think he's right now thinking about diagnosing and fixing?
I think the last part's the ball games. Because we're going to face this a lot. We're going to have close games. How do you get the ball in Wade Taylor's hands and not necessarily get a bad force shot, but to continue to get him looks, because we're going to need him to make shots. I mentioned that with a player like him, you're never out of a game. He's proved that for 4 years. He can bring you back from playing terrible for 38 minutes. That's a fun thing to have. At the same time, the oppositions are trying not to let him have the ball, but we've got to figure out a way to get him some good looks down the stretch. I just think the last 5 minutes of the game, we just didn't play well. The other 35 minutes, I'd take it in a second. Up 9 on the road, not playing your best basketball, but you were playing with confidence and you played a lot of people. So I think the finishing out games and then trying to figure out a way to get Taylor on the foul line, because to me, he makes big free throws. And I was hoping late he would drive it and get fouled and go to the line and keep us in the game. We didn't score but a couple points, right, the last 5 minutes of the game.
That's right.
Yeah.
Don't you think that'll be the first thing to address is, hey, when we get into those situations, here's what we're going to do with Wade? And
that's what I'm hoping, and that's what I think. And then the other teams are figuring out, let's deny Taylor the ball, let somebody else beat us. And I think you're going to see a lot of that this year. I mean, he's so good when he's on, that he can single-handedly beat a team. I really believe that. And then what I did like, he distributed the ball well the other day. And, he's not Superman. He is going to make some mistakes, but they did force that one turnover late on the drive where it bounced off his head, I guess. But
well, Tom, here's, and I want to close out with this. I feel that this is almost expected because of a couple reasons. If Manny Obaseki isn't providing you a little bit of offense, and he didn't have his best game, right? And he was amazing at the end of last season. You lose Boots to pro ball. You don't have Phelps to be that scorer. Who is that second/third scorer? And I think when that happens, it is easy to key in on Wade Taylor and limit him, right? So there has to be another scorer. So when I say it's almost predictable, there's got to be somebody else who emerges offensively to open it up for Wade.
Definitely. I hope those guys don't come in thinking they've got to be scorers. I like people to come in and be accept their role. And then if scoring comes, great. But when a guy comes in off the bench or even starts and he's looking to score immediately, and maybe that's what the coaches are designing to do, but I'd rather them get their feet wet and just come in and ease into the scoring role. If they're totally shutting Wade down, then sure. But sometimes we get the ball in our hands. They're not playing that many minutes. The first thing they're thinking, they've got to score to stay on the floor, and that causes quick shots, bad shots. Defensive transition doesn't get set. So we do need a second and third scorer consistent. I thought Jace Carter did some good things. He missed a couple shots down the stretch late that he normally makes because he's a very aggressive offensive player that can put pressure on the defense.
We've got to hit a break here, but I'm going to go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center because I want for Caitlin to read Tony and Skidmore's text, if you don't mind.
Yes. They say, so glad that Tom Schuberth is back. He is great.
There you go, Tom. Just had to give you a little props there, buddy.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're big in Skidmore. You're big in Skidmore. And probably in Tynan as well.
Little bird dog time. Right after this show, I got some work stuff to do, but then I'm going to be heading to Brady, Texas for my first ever hunt. I'm looking forward to it. I was talking on the phone yesterday with Chris Harrington. Obviously, he played here at A&M, is on our post-game wrap, and he is getting me ready. He'll be there. We have we're going to have so much fun there. Roger Krager's going to be performing tonight, intimate kind of thing. By the way, this is the kind of event that Bird Dog puts together. They're an Airbnb for all the hunters out there, new hunters, soon-to-be hunters, existing hunters, you name it, and they want to be there for ranchers as well. The website is birddogit.com, birddogit.com. They make it easy for landowners to get more hunters, make more money for their ranches. They also can provide hunting experiences for corporate groups, friends groups. They handle all the logistics. Again, that website is birddogit.com. Check it out. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio Go Hour, presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. Tom is still around because we were talking about basketball. And, OB, I think you were listening a little bit when he was talking about, and he's going to be doing some triathlon. So I got to put him on the spot there. It's going to be fun, right?
It's going to be a blast. I'm going to.
You've already started your actual training, or you're just kind of getting your feet wet?
Yeah, kind of getting my feet wet, so to say. I've been swimming a lot, so yeah I have been getting my feet wet, but haven't been doing as much running and not a whole lot of biking. But I'm going to start slow. You know, at my age, you can't just go out and start training 100%. So it's going to be fun, though. I love setting a goal and then kind of looking forward every day. I
love that. I love that thought.
That's what I need, to stay motivated. Some guys can just pop up in the morning and do stuff and not even have a goal out there. I've got to have a goal.
I'm so much better when I have a goal. OB, I think maybe. What do you think?
I'm kind of doing a triathlon?
Yeah, like a small one.
Yeah, no.
Just a little one.
Well, then it wouldn't be a triathlon if it was just a small one.
Yeah, they're called sprints. It's a 300-meter swim, 10-mile bike ride, 3-mile run. You have till March to train. Let's go.
I could handle, how much the run?
3 miles.
I could probably do all of that in 3 days. One each
one per day.
Yeah, but no, I don't want to, and I don't want to.
Okay.
I don't want to do all three.
I just want to do like as a kind of like the thing we do together, like us three, like go hour training.
How about we just all go to 1775?
I think that's a better idea.
That's the way I would do it.
Did you watch the football game?
I did some of it, not the whole thing.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah, the first half was good, but yeah, that was a tough one. That's a hard game there after beating LSU. It's not that. Yeah, that happens to most teams.
A lot of teams, yeah.
Yeah.
Go on the road after a big win, and there's the edge just isn't there, especially when it's a good team.
Yeah.
Tom, thank you, buddy.
Thank you, guys.
Great work. OB, thank you, buddy.
Yep.
When we come back on TexAgs Live, John Harris, Jamie Morrison, Max Wright, Billy Liucci, and Jonathan Hutton from OutKick. So we got a loaded show the rest of the way. That and more. Thanks so much for watching. It is TexAgs Live, hour number 2, straight ahead. Everyone, David Nuño here in a moment right now for Snaps Clothing. They are the makers of the only official licensed Texas A&M Pearl Snap shirts. I'm wearing it right now. This is part of their Tailgater collection. It's built for game day. My friend Edgar over there is doing great work. You've got to check out the clothing. It's the Pearl Snaps. It's the cool look. It's kind of hip, but also Western. You'll love it, and they have great stuff there. They'll keep you comfortable as you're repping your Aggie gear, and it's the place to go to get it. Whether you're watching the game from home or tailgating before watching the stands, these shirts have you covered. Head to snapsclothing.com. That is snapsclothing.com to gear up for the season. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio, hour number 2 of the program. Let's go to the Boss Firearms Hotline. We are joined by FootballTakeover.com founder and good friend of the program, John Harris, who's also the Texans sideline reporter. Dear friend, how are you?
I'm okay, David. How you doing?
I'm good, man. And, I know you and I are family, so I don't have to apologize, but I kept on changing the schedule for you, so my bad, buddy, but thanks for joining us. Let's talk about this A&M game, which I saw some of your tweets, and you were spot on. Where do you want to start? You want to start off with defense, or where do you want to go?
Well, I'll be clear. I made one tweet.
Was it one tweet? Okay.
Post, one X. I don't know. What do we call it now?
I still call it Twitter.
I guess it's called X from now on for certain reasons. But there are a couple things that I get really upset about during a football game, David. It doesn't matter who I'm rooting for. It doesn't matter. I mean, especially if it's the Texans. But it happens a lot when I'm watching the Aggies. Two, I get frustrated with two things. I get frustrated with dumb football, like doing dumb things. 15-yard penalties, seatbelt celebrations when the ball flew 10 yards over a wide receiver's head. Missed tackles. And that was really getting me. Now, missed tackles are a physical thing, but it's also a mental thing as well, because you miss a couple of tackles early on. And at that point, you got to do everything possible. You've got to do more defensively to go find the football. So I had one tweet. In fact, I think I've had one tweet for like a week, and I think that was it, if I remember correctly. And basically what I said, to be clear, was it was the worst tackling performance I'd seen from a good defense in a long time, because that's a really good defense. I mean, how many of those guys, and I'm not just talking about this year, because we know Nick and Turner and Stewart, those guys are going to be, I would imagine, top 3-round picks, right? So those guys are, linebackers eventually. York's eventually going to play in the league, I would imagine. Scooby's got a chance of playing in the league at some point. Secondary's got dudes that are going to play in the league. They got probably 6 or 7 guys in the defense that are going to play in the league at some point. So that's a really good, athletic, damn good defense. And it was tackling miserably on Saturday night. And look, I know Sellers and I know Rocket Sanders are really, really good players. I get it. But I had not seen that defense tackle that way. And I'm telling you, if that defense had tackled it, I think it was maybe the second play of the game where Sellers went back to pass.
Yes.
And there was a linebacker that came clean.
Scooby.
I can't remember who it was. Yeah, Scooby comes clean. Sack him right there. It's 3rd and 13, and you're off the field instead. And then I don't even know what the result of the play was, but I know it was a plus for them, because it should have been a -3, -4, even more play to set up a 3rd and long. And now they're playing it to your hands, because I don't think they can throw the ball to hurt you. I really don't. I don't think they can throw the ball well enough to hurt you unless you make mistakes or you're giving them 2nd and 3, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2, where run pass options are absolutely in play. And you tackled horribly. So that, to me, was the entire difference in the game. Well, they scored 44 points. Yeah, but how many of those drives continued because guys came up, flew up out of control, and didn't make tackles? I mean, a football game isn't quite that simple. But then again, it's not that difficult either. You come make tackles, and you minimize your missed tackles, you minimize your MAs and your MEs, and you play the game you're supposed to. And there was at one point where I remember seeing on the sideline, somehow the ball ended up by Mike for whatever reason, bad throw out of bounds, whatever, and he just took the ball and he just chucked it. Now you see the frustration, because, and this happens to teams and players, and it happens to everybody. Everybody has a bad night, but you just want to have a bad night doing the things that you've done well and let the other team be more talented than you, make a couple more exciting plays. Like Thursday night, we played the Jets. It was a frustrating loss because we lost to the Jets. A lot of people are like, "Wow, you're 2-6," and we gave up 8 sacks, and that's ridiculous. But Garrett Wilson had to make 2 of the best catches we've seen all year long. Like, what do? Mm-hmm. You just tip your cap and go, yeah. So, yeah, I didn't want to lose to the Jets, but if they've got to make those 2 plays to beat you, okay. But it wasn't as if South Carolina was doing anything where you go, wow, whoa, oh. No, they were just breaking tackles. And that's something that shouldn't happen in week, 9, 10, whatever it is of the season. It just shouldn't be happening. And so you got to go back to the drawing board in some sense to get that right. Now, here's the problem when it comes to tackling. Well, you can't really work on practice, can you? You don't put pads on, you don't hit, all that. You can work on tackling every single day, and you can work on it for as long as you want. You can work on pursuit drills. You can work on your feet, your body positioning, all the stuff that can make you a better tackler. You can work on other than just the complete finish, wrap up, take a guy to the ground. That you can't work on, but you can work on everything else. But the biggest thing you can work on is getting more than one guy to the football at a time. And you got to be a little bit more swarm mentality than they were the other night against South Carolina. And I think they'll get back to that, and I think they'll be okay. But that's shocking, but it was frustrating to see a defense that could tackle better, not tackle as well as they should have.
Johnny, I know this rings hollow after the second half offensive performance from A&M against South Carolina, but I've said on the show, if those 25 missed tackles are actually 17, 18, 19, I think A&M might win that game. And I know that doesn't add up mathematically, but a lot of those plays that happened on a 3rd and long in crucial moments. I believe that second play of the game was Scooby. If they were able to get that sack, the game is going to play out different in that first half. I still maintain the stupid penalties at the end of the first half. If that doesn't happen, A&M potentially has the ball kicking another field goal up 6, or they're just leading at the half regardless. And I think the second half plays out different because you stole the momentum. What you allowed South Carolina to do was gain momentum entering halftime after leading for so long.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more on that, David. I think you're dead on. I was thinking the same thing. And as I was watching it, I was kind of thinking about our game in the playoffs last year against the Ravens. They had jumped up on us. I think they were up 10, maybe 10-0, 10-3. I can't remember what it was. And we're not doing a whole lot, but the defense is starting to kind of get it a little bit. And then Steven Sims runs back a punt, and now it's 10-10. So you start to see the momentum building. Then we get a 3-and-out, and we get another drive down. And right before the half, we're about to go up 13-10 and have all the momentum. Now, we've already got the momentum no matter what. Kaimi misses a field goal. So we go into the half 10-10, but we've got all the momentum. And then we come out in the second half, and we have an interception go through our hands. We then let Lamar Jackson escape through our hands. And then the very next play, he throws one. We have an interception in our hands. We roll over, and the ball pops out. On the next play, Lamar Jackson runs a quarterback draw. And all that momentum that you worked for. And that's the thing to remember. I mean, obviously, you get yourself in a hole, but you work yourself out of it. And now you've got enough momentum to not only get out of the hole, but to distance yourself from the hole and make them have to chase you. And then all of a sudden you shoot yourself in the foot. So in a sense, South Carolina, to me, I was like, man, they must feel happy. They're tied because A&M's rolling. And then the second half begins. And I can't tell you the number of times I've seen the Texans come out in the second half, get that momentum going into the half, and come out in the second half, 3-and-out, 3-and-out, 3-and-out. I mean, what are we doing? Like, we got to build on this momentum. And, I said earlier, the two things that really bother me, and stupid football and missed tackles, those things just, they eat at you, because those are two things that everybody should be able to do. And when you watch bad defenses tackle, you see a lot of the same things. Well, I'm going to throw a shoulder into a guy, and that's going to do it. No. You got to wrap up, bring a dude to the ground. And I get tired of seeing those things. And A&M's not a bad defense. But then what happens is it starts to snowball. And then it's one mistake. And then you're amped up trying to make a play. And then you end up getting a penalty because you're doing something that you shouldn't do. You don't have the mental wherewithal because you're just trying to make a play and make up for something that happened. And all of a sudden it snowballs. And you go in 2020, like you said, and you should have been up. And I'm telling you, if you were ahead in that game, coming all the way back before the half to take a lead, guarantee the second half of that game is a little bit different. Do they win? I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say from 44-24. I can't remember what the final score was. But Bam scored 24 in the second half. So could you have won a game? No. But could you put a lot of pressure on them in the fourth quarter to make plays consistently? Yes. and then we'll see how they respond. And I think that's the trouble. Now, a South Carolina team's good. We talked about it. We knew it. We knew it going in. You and I talked about, man, they got dudes. And if Sellers is on, but what you did was you primed the pump by missing all those tackles. And I know A&M fans and TexAgs fans are like, stop talking about missed tackles. It's a reality. It's facts. It's not my opinion. It is facts. And the fact is that is what killed your ball game. And the fact that what you say the number was, David, 25?
Yep.
That's asinine. That's ridiculous. If I'm Mike Elko, I hit all week. I don't care who I'm playing. I hit all week and I tackle all week. All week.
Well, Johnny, I do want to talk Marcel for a moment because I think he's been a plus for this team this year. I know the numbers, actually the numbers looked okay. The turnovers is what you think about in the last 5 minutes of the game. But like when you think about Marcel Reed and this offense moving forward without Le'Veon Moss, right? Because that is your best offensive player. He's done. Amari Daniels is awesome. You know, we'll see how E.J. Smith does in that position. But like, how does this offense move forward with Marcel probably the guy, right? He hasn't been announced as the guy the rest of the way, but you know, I think the team is moving better with him. I thought that game against South Carolina, I don't think he was the problem. He was definitely the problem at the end of the game, but I don't think he was the problem. So just assess Marcel's play so far and how the offense can look without Le'Veon moving forward.
So I used to watch the show Friends, and one of my favorite episodes on Friends is Phoebe Buffay loved the movie Old Yeller. And she loved all these movies. And her friends were always like, you really love that movie? Well, come to find out, she didn't watch the end of those games or the end of those movies. She didn't realize that Old Yeller ends up getting, she didn't know that because she didn't watch the end of it. I was kind of the same way. I got to a point where the game was out of hand and I turned it over to another couple of games. So the fact that he, at the end of the game, I was not surprised. You've seen it a million times. You're down by 3 scores. You're just doing stuff. You're trying to play hero ball because you're trying to get something going, something up on the board, and you don't play the way you have. I thought the first 30 minutes of the game, I thought he was really good. I thought he threw the ball better than probably he's thrown the ball a year. Mm-hmm. I mean, I thought that was the best I've seen him. Not remembering every single thing but I thought, man, he's throwing it really well. And I thought this is going to give them a chance. And that was really what got them back in the ball game, the way he was throwing the football. You can't miss 4th and 1. You can't miss 4th and 1 again. You can't. You just can't. And those are killers. You're handing points to South Carolina at that point. But I thought Marcel overall, and I'm not putting that 4th and 1 on Marcel, not at all. You got to be able to get 36 inches or might have been less. I don't even know. It might have been a foot. You got to get that. And I think that's what Mike Elko said. He's like, look, so if you're a good offensive line, you got great running backs back here. We should be able to get 12 inches or 36 or whatever it was. And got stuffed. And, it's huge. That's what turned the momentum the first time. But then you turn it back. So point being, as it pertains to Marcel, I thought Marcel played very, very well. And I look at that team now and I think, I was pretty confident going into the South Carolina game that Marcel gave them the best chance to win the game. I'm even more confident that Marcel gives them the chance to win any game the rest of the year. Even Texas, I just feel like Marcel puts a lot of pressure on defenses. And if he throws the ball the way he did the other night, I think he's going to get even more comfortable. Yes, losing Le'Veon it's huge, but there is some depth at running back. And because Marcel can run it the way that he does, he ends up being probably your number 2 running back, seemingly. I'm not seeing anything out of EJ that makes me feel good about him getting reps at all, to be honest. I'm just not. I just don't see it. I mean, there are a couple times where he needed to take a cut inside. Instead, he's trying to bounce it. And you're like, you can't bounce runs against this fast defense. You got to be thinking inside, downhill. And that's what made Le'Veon great. Le'Veon wasn't going to bounce anything. He was just going to take the hole inside. And then if he needed to cut back or jump cut to get to the outside, okay, fine. I just think, though, with Daniels, I feel good. I feel really good. And I feel with Marcel, you can run the football. So I'm not panicked about them being able to move the football. I just want to see them get back to doing the discipline things that they've been doing with Mike. That was kind of a reverting back to the way they played with Jimbo and the way they played with previous defensive coordinators. And that to me was not great. It was not a good sign. That's not the way they've played this year. And that to me is the most frustrating aspect of that game. But I think Marcel, I think Marcel is more than fine. I think he'll be solid going forward. I think Connor needs to keep his head up because there might come a time, because Marcel does run the ball, that he's going to have to get back in the game and make some plays, a la Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa, who we talked about before. You just got to be ready because you never know. But right now, I feel like Marcel gives him the best chance to win.
Johnny, I'm going to take you inside my mind. You know me better than most people, so you know how I think. But I look at this team. The tackling will be better because I know Mike Elko. I know that caliber of defense. And they're not taking Lenore Sellers on the rest of the way. So my thinking is, all right, you're going to win New Mexico State if, Olin's quarterback. You're still going to win. I think you're going to win that game. You go to Auburn, and I'm super worried about Auburn. Super worried about Auburn. It's a road game in the SEC. A&M hasn't played their best ball, but who does on the road? But I think you should win that game. Then it sets up, potentially, a showdown with the University of Texas at Kyle Field, the most magical place when it comes to football, in my opinion. All right? And with that defense, and I think Texas's issues blocking good defensive lines, I think Quinn Ewers is going to be in for something. So in my mind, there's obviously still a little hesitation because I've seen the offense not be consistent for 4 quarters in a game, and obviously what we just saw against South Carolina. But in my mind, I'm like, yeah, you can and almost should win these games if you get back to playing Mike Elko football.
Yeah. Well, what do you want me to, you said it.
Yeah. Well,
you called me on the phone to make me say what you just said, and you said it. That's dead on, David. That's exactly the right way of saying it. And whenever you bring that up with people, you just say, well, John Harris said this too. So, because I agree with everything you just said. Look, the game against Texas at the end of the year, that's going to be a bloodbath for a number of different reasons. But I think what we have found out about Texas is they miss C.J. Baxter a whole lot more than they even let on. You talk to Texas fans like, nah. I'm like, yeah, you do. You miss C.J. Baxter. Secondly, that offensive line is definitely fool's gold. Georgia got after him in a big time way. But you can't, obviously, we can, because as fans we can, but media members we can, but the team can't. Because like you said, you can go to Auburn and get tripped up, then all of a sudden you got 3 losses and you're out of the playoff hunt. And a Florida Bowl is great, but a playoff game on the road would be even greater. So you just got to take care of business. And you're right, Auburn can be tricky. Auburn can get beat by Vanderbilt. Auburn can take Georgia to the final gun. So it's the one kind of team you don't want to play on the road late in the season, to be honest, because you should beat them. Play them 10 times, you probably beat them 8 times, but because you're playing them at their place. But you still have that carrot in front of you. That carrot being, there's a playoff opportunity. Even with 2 losses, there's a playoff opportunity. If you run the table, you've got this opportunity to not only get to the playoff, but also to get the SEC championship. There's a possibility there. So you just go back to doing and playing the way that Mike has coached you to play. And if you do that and don't make turnovers, pick up 4th and 1, tackle better, you got an opportunity to set up that game against Texas as a round of 32 game. If you're thinking about a NCAA tournament, it's a round of 32 game, because that game will determine who gets a spot in a SEC championship game, who gets a spot in a college football playoff game potentially. So it's a playoff for the playoff. So it's going to add even more to that game, which makes it that much more important that over these next couple of games, you get your fundamentals back in order and you start relying on your fundamentals and not your emotion, because the emotion is going to carry you away in that game against Texas. And you got to get back to playing fundamental football. You get back to doing that. You've got enough talent. You got great coaching. You have enough playmakers. Yes, you missed Moss, no doubt, but I think you still have enough to go win big football games. But just take care of business one week after the next and then set up a big one against them on November 30th.
Johnny, can I get a 30-second answer, which is probably unfair, maybe a minute answer on what's happening with Kenyon Green and hit some of his struggles?
Man, I wish I knew, D. I really do. I just think he hasn't played a lot of football. I think he's lost some confidence. And then, of course, on top of that, the other night he faces Quentin Williams. On top of that, he then injures his shoulder. So I think you throw it all into one big mix, and it's been unfortunate because he came to the Texans banged up. and tried to play through it and then realized he couldn't. So then he had to go get rehab. So when he steps on the field this past year, he's only got 5, 6, 7 starts under his belt or whatever it was. He didn't even have a full season under his belt. And it just, his confidence started to erode. And then, he's now out for the season. And I hate that because I love Kenyon. He's a sweet, gentle soul. And I think he has the right mindset to go be a great football player. But I just think the injury factor really got him, and then his confidence started to erode. And unfortunately, injuries got him the other night. So I love him. I hope we continue with him because I still think there's something there and a good football player with him. But we're just going to have to go find somebody to replace him going forward, or we're going to have 10 sacks on Sunday night against the Lions.
Johnny, I appreciate it, brother. Thank you very much.
Yeah, man. Love you, brother.
Love
See
you,
you.
man. That's my guy, John Harris. All right, we'll hit a break. When we come back on TexAgs Live, Jamie Morrison will be in studio. So, okay, I'm sorry for bringing it up, but I'm going to Brady, Texas here in a couple hours, and I promise you most of my wardrobe is from Duck Camp. They took care of me. Like, I ordered some stuff. I'm so pumped about it. I got it all. Duck Camp is awesome clothing. Like, they've got amazing gear. You got to check it out. They fit really well. I wouldn't call them fitted. I wouldn't call them loose. I would say they're comfortable. They're very comfortable. Right? And you want your clothes to be comfortable. You want it to be stylish, but kind of like, not like hipster stylish, just like, good old boy stylish. They've got it all, and they range from their new sun protection line of shirts to the technical hunting, of course, to everybody's favorite Mallard Game Series hats. They've been tested in the back country of Alaska, to the Dove Fields of Texas. They're going to keep you cool and comfortable for those scorcher game days. Duck Camp is made for people that live for the moments out there where there are fish to catch, bird to hunt, time to kill, and football to watch. Check it out at I keep thinking about Bird Dog because Bird Dog and Duck Camp are partners. They're friends. duckcamp.com. That is duckcamp.com. All right, we're back here on TexAgs Live. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. Jamie Morrison is in studio with us on a Wednesday. What's up, sir?
Not much. It is Wednesday. It feels weird.
Yeah, because usually you're Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesdays.
But happy to have you here. So let's look back at the last week. Emotional win, then a kind of a setback. Just kind of take me through the week, if you will.
Yeah, we played Alabama, and the SEC's a grind, and they came in here and gave us all that we could handle, and we came out on top in that one. And I think the third set, if I remember correctly, second set somewhere in there, had a little comeback at the end, and then the next set kind of rolled. And then Mississippi State came into town, and I told the team afterwards, I hold the right to kind of be frustrated tomorrow, but I felt like we ran into a buzzsaw in their best match of the year. And when I went back and watched the video, it was just that. And they made 6 unforced errors in 3 sets, which is usually what most teams do in 1 set. And it was a little bit too much for us. So we went back to work. We did have practice yesterday right away. And I like the attitude that we came in with of, hey, we're going to keep doing what we're doing. We're going to keep being disciplined. We're going to keep working hard. And we're on a good spot and ready to go for this road trip this weekend.
To borrow a little bit from football, against LSU, the momentum carried them through that second half. South Carolina got some momentum in the second half. Is that a little bit of maybe what happens to a team is just clicking and maybe you don't have your best stuff while they are clicking?
Yeah, I think it's it. And we've talked a lot about becoming a great team. And one of the things that great teams do, and the one thing, again, that we had to do in that, and the one thing that we have to learn from it, is that first set, we had the chance to make them feel uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. We were up by a pretty big chunk. We keep that up, and all of a sudden, the second set, they're feeling like they have to do more than even that perfect amount that they were doing. And sooner or later, that breaks. And that's what we need to get to, of finding a way to win that first set. And it doesn't need to be pretty necessarily, but it needs to be like, hey, you're giving us everything you have. All right, here's 5% more from us. We're going to break you, and then we're going to go off and win this afterwards. And that's the next step and the next evolution this team needs to take in order to go be great.
So you mentioned to watch the film to identify some of the things that need to be fixed. And I think what you mentioned there is probably part of that whole process. But were there some key areas that you potentially focused on to, like, all right, beyond what we have to do here, this stood out in the performance?
Yeah, there was some small stuff. I think from the service line, we didn't make them feel uncomfortable. We didn't attack space. We started to work on that a little bit yesterday. I think there's some offensive things that we can clean up. And those are some things that we started working on yesterday. I'm trying to remember what the third one was, but there were some specifics of, hey, we're going to get in and check these things off the list and make sure that we're becoming a better team and learning from this. And we'll get back to work again tomorrow.
Were some of those things apparent in the Alabama match, but because you win, it's almost like a loss is never good. Please don't think that I'm trying to say that, but sometimes a loss helps you. Like, this is what happens when this consistently happens.
Great question.
Yes.
I know. You made me think. I didn't have an answer to it all of a sudden. I have to. There were probably small pieces of it. And one, I agree. Like, losses force you to make changes. Whereas wins, you can identify them, but there's less of a sense of urgency of, like, we have to change this. I think there were some small pieces of some things where maybe we were a little bit passive in that and didn't necessarily lean in and push on a team as much as we normally do. I think there were some that were very isolated to that Mississippi State game. And again, like, I thought Mississippi State played the best volleyball they probably have all year. And they've been playing great the last 2 matches is what I told their head coach. And they probably will going forward. But I think there's probably small pieces of that got amplified because we lost the first set. That all of a sudden we kind of backed off even more on some of those things in the second and third. And then we were in too big of a hole. So, yes, to answer your question.
Yes. We were talking before the segment. We've got 3 weeks left of SEC play, and was it 6 matches? Is that right?
Yeah, I believe so, if my math's right.
It's just, is there, doing the math with 6 games left before a postseason run, is there still time to tinker, I guess is?
Yeah, 100%. I think we'll constantly be tinkering. We might be tinkering like in the postseason. And I think great teams are able to do that. They're able to not necessarily say, like, hey, everything's great, we're here, this is who we are. It's like, hey, we can make this 1% improvement.
It's a tinker. It's not a seismic shift.
Yeah. It's not a, hey, we're going to completely change our block and D system and go do this. It's, hey, here's this small piece that we can improve on within this system. So I do think as you get to the end of the season, you should be a little bit locked into who you are, but there should be some fluidity in it that you can make these small changes and still upgrade. and adjust to your opponent. That's another piece of it. Like there's certain little things that you want to tweak in what you're doing to make sure that you're ready for what's coming that weekend. So we'll continue to do that.
So what can you tell me about Kentucky?
They're good. I think everyone, I don't know, assumed Texas was going to come into the conference, and all of a sudden Texas was going to go dominate the conference, and they're sitting in second or third place right now. And we started that a little bit, and then they lost 2 more matches, so Kentucky's in the spot in the driver's seat to win our conference again right now. And so they're good. They're always fundamentally really sound. They play a really good transition game. I remember last year leaving that match, and I think we all learned from our opponents a little bit, especially as they're going through a conference for the first time, and you're like, I want to transition like that and be that clean. So I think we picked up some stuff there, and it'll be a battle. They're a little bit banged up. They've had some season-ending injuries to start the season and a couple in the middle. So it'll be a battle back and forth, and we're looking forward to it in a fun environment. It's a great place to go play volleyball.
So am I seeing this right? 3-game road?
Yeah.
You're going to
here we go again.
Oh, my goodness. And then Kentucky obviously started off like that. This is a grind.
Yeah, Kentucky, Tennessee, Oklahoma, and then Oklahoma just beat Texas. And again, the SEC's crazy. And I think I came here because of our environment with 12th man, but I think the SEC as a whole too. We go into these arenas and it's a fun place to play. So I look forward to that. I like getting the competitive juices flowing by having people cheering against me. So getting on our plane and getting going again.
Last thing for you, considering the most recent game is a loss.
Yep.
And that always, a loss to me is brighter. Like you feel it more than you feel a win, even though the wins feel great. But like how do you feel about where you are at this point in the season?
Yeah, you always wake up after that loss and bad words enter your head very loudly, and you're like, man, I want that back. But I think where I'm at right now is we need to continue doing what got us to this point.
Yep.
And I hope that my objective eye going back and looking at that match and saying, hey, Mississippi State played really, really well is right, and that the things that we're doing are the right things, and we don't need to go completely change systems and do all these things. We just need to tinker. So I think that's the mindset right now of get in, and for the next 2 weeks, we're going to be playing a lot. Today is one of the days we get to grind a little bit. Of getting in and grinding and working on the things that we need to do to go win, and then go battle and expect battles. I really am. Like these next 3 games, I'm like, man, we need to come out. We need to be able to get in here, grind at the end of that first set, figure out a way to get past that and do it again in the second, and then do that 3 matches in a row. That's the mindset right now.
Jamie, thank you, sir.
My pleasure.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll hit a break here. We'll come back with Max Wright here on TexAgs Live, a moment for Caldwell Country Chevrolet. You can find them on Highway 21 and online at caldwellcountrychevrolet.com. They have a great selection of commercial vehicles with service body trucks, flatbed trucks, medium-duty trucks for those heavier jobs. Obviously, they're locally owned and Aggie alumni operated. They have complimentary pickup and delivery for their service customers. They have free oil changes for life on the life of your purchase as long as you own that car from Caldwell Country Chevrolet. And they have a strong and committed sales staff with many, many years of experience. Here's the thing about Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Get great customer service, as I've talked about, a great price, and a great trade-in value. You put that all together, you're walking away a very happy customer from Caldwell Country Chevrolet. We're talking 15 minutes, the edge of Bryan to the beginnings of Caldwell. A short conversation away, but you'll see the difference when you step on the lot and do business with the great people at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Highway 21 in Caldwell, online, caldwellcountrychevrolet.com. And we are back on TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. So let's go to the Boss Firearms Hotline. Max Wright's with us to break things down. And Max on the Boss Firearms Hotline. Max, you write momentum shifts. And in LSU, there was certainly a momentum shift. And unfortunately, in Columbia, South Carolina, there was certainly a momentum shift. Two, actually. One where A&M took it, and then South Carolina took it back.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better. Yeah, I think that the past 2 weeks have been ones of a lot of ups and then some pretty significant downs. This team's facing a lot of adversity, and they're going to be facing a lot of adversity coming towards the end of the season. But still feeling optimistic about some things. Obviously, some things happened in that game. The loss of Le'Veon Moss that are big shifts in momentum, especially in what this team's been doing successfully. So I'm feeling hopeful. I'm still trying to feel hopeful for the running game for this season, and I'm still feeling optimistic and feeling good about moving forward.
All right, so you're not that far removed from being in that locker room.
Mm-hmm.
As a fan, I feel like these losses linger more than as an athlete when you're in the locker room. Like, yeah, you think about it, but it's onto the work. Is that kind of how the mindset will be across the street?
Yeah, it has to be. You can't ever be caught up in the rearview mirror. You got to keep things on your mind as you're going through the season and learn from your mistakes. But you can't ever stay focused on a game that's in the past. I think that's one thing that we used to always talk about on Sundays is whenever you get up there, this is the only day that we're going to reflect on last week's game. This is the only time that we're going to think about it. After this, we're going to focus on making improvements in where we saw some of our faults and preparing for the next team moving forward. You don't have time to look backwards and worry about what's happened in the past. And Coach Elko does a great job of that. And I know that he's hammering the guys now saying, hey, you know what? That's done with. That's over. They have time now to make some adjustments and, fix some things that maybe they saw in that game. So I fully expect, and I've been a part of Coach Elko doing this, I fully expect him to get them fired up, to get them rolling in the right direction moving forward for the rest of the season.
Max, people hate what ifs on radio, especially after a loss. Like, dude, we don't like if Scooby gets that sack, if this happens. People hate that. But I want to go down this path. Let's just say instead of an interception, which, by the way, you can't take it away. It happened. Instead of that interception with 14 minutes left, they kick a field goal or score a touchdown. I don't think that game is going to be 44-27, right? I think that – I'm not saying A&M wins that game, but having the ability to cut it to a field goal or a touchdown away from tying would just – and by the way, it was there. It was there to be had. I think the game plays out. And I'm not putting all the blame on Marcel. He shouldn't have had that interception, no doubt. But I thought Marcel played very well. So kind of take that track of thinking.
Yeah, you look at the what-ifs in this game. My big thing was you look at the sack column that we had. This defensive line and this defensive front that we've had has been able to get after the quarterback and get the quarterback on the ground. Well, they had 0 sacks in this game. I think that you talk about the what-if column. We had our hands on the quarterback in the backfield, I'd say at least 4 or 5 times in places where I was jumping up and down thinking we had him for a sack. You want to talk about momentum and you want to talk about things that can really turn a game around. We've seen it, how our defensive line has taken over games. So, the what if in that is if, hey, maybe we get a few sacks and we get a few more, turnover on downs kind of situations, that gives us momentum. And then just like you said, if he doesn't throw that interception and maybe we go down and score and make it a 1-possession ball game, I think that then puts the pressure on South Carolina where I felt like we missed some opportunities to put pressure on them to give ourselves a chance to come in and win that football game in the second half. And that's something you can't do in the SEC. That's why it's so hard to run the table in this conference, is because if you miss opportunities against any team in this conference, you can lose a game. The what ifs were everywhere. What if we were able to, consistently tackle in that game? What if we were able to go in there and not lose Le'Veon Moss? What if we were able to go in there and, control the line of scrimmage better than, we have in previous games? There's so many things that I was working through in my head that, the what ifs really stink to go over. But it does leave, and people are going to get frustrated in me saying this, it does leave some room for optimism. And man, we did not play a good football game. If we put some things together there in the second half, it's definitely a different ball game coming into the fourth quarter than what it was.
All right. Well, let's talk about the optimism, because it's rooted in what we've seen in 7 of the 9 games, right? Like in 7 of the 9 games. Look, the Notre Dame game, I put it in its own category. South Carolina was a beatdown. Like the momentum, the defense was better than our defense. I get that. But the other games, even though some of them came down to fourth quarters, right? A&M played a Mike Elko brand of football.
Yeah. I mean, you look at the past 6 of the past 7 weeks, 6 weeks in a row, they played great football and they were able to go out there and do what needed to be done to win 6 games in a row, which is no small feat. I mean, bad teams and teams that, aren't necessarily at the top caliber of SEC football can't do that. So I think this team definitely still has the structure to still, finish out this season really strong. Obviously this past week was a frustrating week, and South Carolina had a lot of things that were set up for them to come in and do this, coming off a bye week, getting some guys back fully healthy that maybe they've been missing over the past few weeks. So I mean, they felt fully ready to go and had all the energy in the world and all the excitement playing us as the top team. So it was kind of the perfect storm of things. And I think that, when you look forward towards the end of the season, now we get a week to kind of, recollect ourselves, to kind of take a step back and say, all right, you know what, we don't ever want to feel that feeling again. That was terrible. It gives Coach Elko, a chance to get in there with Coach Klein and kind of figure some things out in the offense. How are we going to stay effective and how are we still going to, put points on the board after losing Le'Veon Moss? I think that we've seen the coaching brilliance of Coach Elko and Coach Klein and this staff to where I really do expect them over this next week to take advantage of this time and to bring the guys together and to turn this thing back up even more than what it was in previous weeks. So I think that they're going to be just fine, I think. So,
Max, for a guy who has been as productive as he has been, I'm talking about Amari Daniels here, I feel like we don't know much about him, right? We know that he's produced when he's out there and he's produced at a very high level. What can you tell us about Amari?
Yeah, I mean, Amari Daniels is a great running back. I think that's one of the major luxuries that we have on this football team is you lose Le'Veon Moss and obviously, one of the premier running backs in all of college football to then go to a guy, Amari Daniels, who is also a premier running back in college football. I mean, you look at the numbers that he's putting up. I mean, he'd be talked about if he was on any other team in the SEC as one of the better running backs in the SEC with the stats that he puts out. It just so happens that he's on, a team with one of the best running backs in the league. So I think whenever you look at moving forward, what Amari Daniels can do whenever he gets more touches, we've seen his productivity. We've seen how he can run the football effectively. He is a physical running back who I've honestly been impressed with how he's, made some growth in the offseason with his speed. We've seen some of his explosiveness, him being able to take and outrun guys at the end zone like we saw in the South Carolina game. I think that Amari is a great running back, and he's going to have a chance here to, step up and be like, hey, you know what? Le'Veon Moss is a fantastic running back, but I am too. And I expect him to do some great things. I've seen what he's been able to do in practice and on the field, and we will be just fine with having him running the rock.
What do you think the vibe's been over there this week? Like the attention to detail, the anger, the focus. What do you think it's been like?
Man, I've been a part of some pretty frustrating road losses. Obviously we didn't really get a road loss until this season. It was a long time coming. So I've been a part of a lot of road losses. But I know that feeling well. It's one of frustration. It's one of, going back and looking at the tape. And I know this is happening as they're looking at that tape like, man, we really just beat ourselves in this game. And that's never a feeling you want to feel. Sometimes it can turn seasons one of two ways. It can, change the direction of the team in a positive way or in a negative way. And how this team's been performing up to this point, I just think that it's going to fire them up even more and bring them together to not let something like that happen again. I think that the vibes over there is the leadership's in place from a player standpoint to bring the guys together and to keep the team cool-headed. I mean, still up for the number one spot in the SEC. I mean, still a chance to, run the table and put ourselves in contention to be a true, playoff conversation team. I think that there's veteran leadership. Coach Elko is a guy who doesn't just talk the talk. He walks the walk with how he leads those guys and the character that he instills in them. I think that with all the pieces that we have put together, that the vibes there are exactly where they need to be. They're frustrated, but they're not looking in the rearview mirror, feeling sorry for themselves. They're going to move forward and move into next week ready to go, or 2 weeks ready to go.
Max, I appreciate it, buddy. Thanks so much for your time.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Appreciate it.
We did it at the same time. Look at that. That was good. Talk to you later, man. All right, let's talk Lewis Engineering right now before we hit a break. Doug Lewis, he's a friend. He's a TexAgger. He's listening, probably watching the show as we speak. He'll be chatting on TexAgs.com. But Lewis Engineering is a place that is headquartered in Marshall, Texas, and they have some deep, deep family roots. Started in 1961 by his great-grandfather during the Vietnam War. They make handheld signal flares. They made it then, and they're still making it today. And they manufacture mostly munitions for the U.S. Department of Defense, but looking to take on any machining and metal fabrication project. They help the aerospace industry, automotive industry, and they're a big company, right? They got 40 employees and operate out of a 50,000 square foot facility, specializing in high volume machining and metal plating projects. So if you need 100,000 pieces or more, let them be the place, right? They do high production and they'll do great things for you. A turnkey supplier that will make sure that you get exactly what you want. Feel free to call Doug at 903-938-6754. That is 938-6754, or visit them at lewisengineeringco.com. That is lewisengineeringco.com. You're on. And we are back on TexAgs Live. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. It is the Rollo Insurance Studio. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. That's where we find the Torniac, Caitlin Torn. Caitlin, it's become my new bit. It's not even a bit. Where I'm just kind of walking in as the song's already playing. I'm telling Nick as I pass by the room, go ahead and turn it on.
Yeah,
I want the
chill.
people to see the behind-the-scenes thing. Sometimes I go get water or I refill my coffee because I was up late last night partying on Northgate.
Right. I bet.
Okay, I was actually Watching television.
Right. Well, the Texans just posted about 20 minutes ago that former Aggie defensive lineman Jaden Peavy has just signed to their practice squad. With the Aggies, he finished his career with 137 tackles, 7.5 sacks, and 58 career games. He participated in the NFL Players Association Collegiate Bowl and was given the Aggies Mr. Dependable Award. In the NFL, Peavy's played for the Carolina Panthers and the Cleveland Browns. He's played in 6 career games for this season for the Panthers and has a career high of 6 tackles with 1 forced fumble and 3 quarterback hits with 1.5 sacks. He's played 84 defensive snaps, which is 32% of the total defensive playing time.
Awesome. I know you've got some equestrian news in cross country.
Yes, so the number 2 Texas A&M equestrian team took down number 3 TCU 12-8 on Friday afternoon at the Hildebrand Equine Complex. 3 Aggies earned MOP honors, which is the most outstanding player selected by the judges: Riley Schufelt, Brooke Brombach, and Kendall Dirkskin. And then Texas A&M hits the road to face number 1 Auburn at Auburn this Saturday at 11 a.m. Cross country also earned a pair of top 10 finishes at the SEC Championship last Friday morning at the Watts Cross Country course. The men placed in 8th and the women finished in 10th.
Great stuff, Caitlin. Appreciate that. When we come back on TexAgs Live, I'll sit actually looking at the camera. Billy Liucci will be in studio. We'll chit-chat with Billy. I'm not going to be here the next couple of days, so we thought it'd be a good time to reconnect. We'll have Billy on the program, Jonathan Hutton of OutKick. That and more. You're listening to TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We are back on the program that we have called TexAgs Live for the last 2 months. That's because it's the name. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We're in the Rollo Insurance Studio. We will probably call Billy Liucci on the phone in a few minutes, I'm assuming. I'm not 100% sure how we're going to handle that situation, but we'll probably give him a shout and try to get him on the show a little early. Right now, FBS and their team of experts are here to help you with the appliances that make your house a home. They carry all the top brands to make your life a little easier with the appliances to fit any budget. They've been caring for Texas since 1988. They have your trusted brands like Bosch, expert staff, trained installers to guide you through your purchase because FBS Appliance is and wants to be your trusted appliance store. They pride themselves on offering a comprehensive solution that sets them apart from the competition. They specialize in providing top-notch sales and installation services for leading brands, ensuring a seamless experience for their customers. Again, visit any of their 8 showrooms across Texas or find them online at factorybuilderstores.com. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Caitlin Torn, what do you have for us?
So we got a text a little bit earlier in the show from Jason in Savannah, Georgia that says, deep in the heart of UGA territory, my friends do not want to play the Aggies because they say we are dangerously close to putting it all together. Scary team, and they believe we are officially here and a team to worry about for some time.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute. Let's kind of chew on this, and Nick can help us as well. What are teams in the SEC that are kind of like these tweener teams that are like, you could see them making a run and getting in the playoffs that you wouldn't want to face if you are a Georgia? I think the Aggies fall in that category.
Definitely.
I think Ole Miss.
Vanderbilt. I would say Vanderbilt.
In the playoffs? Oh, and
just a tweener team that you wouldn't want to face if you're a Georgia or A&M or Tennessee. Texas barely beat them,
but
they're pesky.
Yeah, I agree. But let's focus on the SEC championship game, right? If you're Georgia, who are teams you don't want to face?
Oh, I see what you're asking.
Yeah, so like if Georgia, by the way, Georgia's going to have to win this weekend, and then they're going to have to win against Tennessee, so their road is still very difficult. I would assume, and again, you could probably pick any of the teams that are almost playoff teams, but I'm thinking matchups, right? Like I'm thinking about matchups. Ole Miss's offense, when it's clicking, is a dangerous matchup, and I might even pick them on Friday to beat Georgia this weekend. I'm not sure how I feel about that because Ole Miss from 3 weeks ago, I thought they were a joke. The Ole Miss I've seen the last couple of weeks, I'm not sure.
Sold on Ole Miss by any means.
Okay. So, but do you think they would be potentially a dangerous matchup for Georgia?
No.
Okay.
No, I think Georgia will handle them.
Twice?
Yes.
Okay. What about Tennessee?
That's scary.
Is it, though? Which quarterback's playing at a higher level, Jackson Dart or Nico?
Iumaliava.
I did that because I knew you could do it.
Sorry, I didn't know you were taking a sip there. But yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, I don't know. That's hard, but I think it's more like Georgia. We've seen them not play up to their standard more often than not this season. So I feel like that alone would make it a close game.
Let me give you another one. How about Texas? And before you answer, Nick, considering how that second half played out, and Texas can't be that bad potentially, but again, the SEC championship game, neutral site in Atlanta. Neutral, right? How about, do you think Georgia would want to take on the University of Texas a second time?
Probably not. Because it is this kind of contradictory to what I just said about Ole Miss, but it is tough to beat a team twice, right? So that would be a little bit tougher of a matchup than Ole Miss, I think, but I definitely don't think they want to see them again.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what other match. And by the way, it may not be Georgia. It might be who Texas doesn't want to take on in the SEC championship game. Let's just, for instance, I guess it wouldn't happen, right? If Texas lost to A&M, could they replay each other in the SEC champ? I guess there's a scenario that could happen again, right?
Yeah, but I think there would need to be a little bit of help around the SEC, maybe some unlikely outcomes for that to happen.
I don't think Texas would want to face A&M twice in a row.
No.
By the way, I represent A&M in this conversation. I wouldn't want to play Texas twice in a row.
Yeah, I was about to say, I've flipped that the other way as well. Like I just said, it's really tough to beat a team twice, especially if you're playing, 2 weeks in a row? That's really, that happens in the NFL, right, when they get into the playoffs, but we've never seen that in college football, I don't think. Not too often, at least.
I don't want to face LSU again because they actually gained my respect. And I don't mean that like they didn't have my respect before, but watching them in that first half was like, wow, this team, like, I know the second half was a completely different story. Oh, by the way, nobody, I think, would want to play South Carolina. Not that South Carolina's got a chance to the SEC championship game, but nobody, I think, and it's not just because A&M got their butts spanked this past weekend, or at least in the second half. I don't think anybody wants to face that South Carolina defense. Now, could you have a game plan to limit that offense? Absolutely. But I just don't think that is a matchup that most people want to see. Like, you know, there's not, that's not going to happen. But I agree with everything you just said there. And with that, we're going to welcome in Billy Liucci to the program here on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers in the Rollo Insurance Studio. Billy, it was kind of organically brought up, but kind of going through scenarios of who teams wouldn't want to face in the SEC championship game because of potential matchup problems. And we brought up, because a texter sent in to the show, that Georgia fans do not want to face A&M if that were to be the case. And I was just kind of playing out some scenarios. Who are teams that, if you're Georgia, you would not want to face in an SEC championship game? And I said A&M, Ole Miss, even though they're going to get their crack at Ole Miss this weekend.
I think, explain to me why A&M, because I think I agree, but explain to me what y'all's thought was.
My thought is if Carson Beck has struggled with some of those other defenses, when A&M is not playing the South Carolina tackling game, they would feast on Carson Beck.
Okay, you're right, and they're right. You do understand why they played the South Carolina tackling game, right? I mean, I know they didn't tackle well against Notre Dame, but it was still nothing like what we saw. I mean, Notre Dame's touchdowns one was a blown fit, the other one was a missed tackle, but it was a miss, like a whiff in space.
Right.
It wasn't like wrap them up, slide like all we saw the other night 25 or so times. This was by far an anomaly, an outlier. And I wouldn't say this is a great tackling team over the course of the season. I would not say that. But that was so far outside of the norm. That was because of a lot of things, but I think mainly because Sellers and Sanders are two. First of all, they did a good job of scheming. I say that, but if A&M gets home on the sacks, they did get home.
Yep.
They took them down. How much different does it look? Do they ever get into a rhythm? You know, they got to run 11 plays on the first drive, mainly because he got hit in the chest on an unchecked blitzer and avoided a sack. Otherwise, they're running 3 and out to start the game, not those extra 8 plays. And you could give plenty of other examples of that. The reason they tackled like that, in my opinion, and we'll see, if it holds true, Jarquez Hunter's going to put that to the test. He would have anyway. But Rocket Sanders, Jarquez Hunter, and then Sellers, the uniqueness of a 6'5", 250-pound quarterback, or 6'4", 245, whatever he was, like Elko said, he's a tight end. The uniqueness of that assignment, and they failed the test. But that's not, Carson Beck can move around and stuff, but that's not him.
Right.
That's not Quinn Ewers. It's nobody they're going to face. It's no one they would face. I guess there's a world where maybe Bama could get there and you'd face a Milroe who's not that big, but he's very tough to tackle. But no,
But he's more of a passer.
I think that's a matchup that Georgia would fear from the standpoint of I don't think they have the explosive, game-breaking, game-changing playmakers either to, really hurt. They don't run like they used to. And, there's no, Swift and Nick Chubb and those guys. They don't run like they used to. They don't have like the Brock Bowers or even the Ladd McConkey or like these game breakers, Pickens and those type guys. And their O-line isn't as good.
Right.
So, yeah, I think that plays into a low scoring. Now, if their defense is up, guess who else is going to have a really hard time scoring? Texas A&M without Le'Veon Moss. So, yeah, I mean, that would be a tough matchup. I think Georgia would probably worry a little bit about Texas, too.
Yeah,
because I think the Texas defense is equipped, if they get another shot at them, to really shut them down. And
it was a different game in the
pick
second
back
half.
off 3 times?
Beck was, and I think weren't they all in the first half?
And I don't even want to give Texas fans that, where they're like, oh, it's a different game in the second half. You got your ass kicked so bad that was part of why it was a different game. They were able to be pretty conservative, and I also thought Kirby smart, and
Yes.
they kept that game alive in a lot of ways.
Going for it on fourth there.
Bad decision making to me, clock management, things like that. But no, Texas fought. But I watched that game, and I did think if they play again on a neutral field, Texas could get them. I mean, Georgia was dominant that night, almost 1,000% because of what that defensive front did.
Yep.
I mean, they
went after them.
Yeah. And so I don't think Georgia's anything close to a lock to win this conference, because
I don't know if they're a lock to win this weekend.
I was about to say, to me, that might be their worst matchup.
Mm-hmm.
Because Ole Miss has got, I mean, if you want to put one here, one there, but Ole Miss, their defense held that South Carolina offense to 3 points. A&M gave up 44. And I know there are reasons why, but they held them to 3. Sellers was just coming back from the ankle injuries. But still, 3
The result
points.
is the result.
Their defense is really damn good. And it's led by a former Aggie in the middle, and Princely Umamiellen's doing a good job. They got other D linemen. That is a really good defense that Golding's running over there, and they're better offensively than the Aggies have been this year. Because they've got, and it boils down to look at quarterback play. You've got a third year starter at quarterback in Jackson Dart, senior, and you've got an elite set of pass catchers, particularly Trey Harris, who's been hurt, who's going to be healthy real soon, probably this weekend. So, yeah, Georgia's in for a real tough test that time, and then they still got Tennessee. If you're not scoring points against Kentucky, and you're struggling to score against Florida, then all these games, come into play and are at risk. Tennessee, Ole Miss, whoever they play in an SEC title game. I think the team they would have the best route to beat in that title game would be like Tennessee and LSU, because I think LSU's defense is not. I don't think it's good, and I think they can be had, and that's a defense that I think Georgia could score more points against.
All right, let's get into the CFP rankings that came out yesterday. A&M coming in at number 14, which doesn't mean anything at this point. I mean, it means something, because if you win, you're going to move up. But it doesn't mean anything at this point. So do what Elko said on Monday, win these next 3 games.
Yeah, and if they win their next 3, then that's where it comes in, right? You're at 14. You got to start looking like, if you win your next 3, what happens? If they win their next 4, they're in the playoff.
Yep.
If they win their next 3 and lose to a Georgia or Texas or LSU or whoever, what does it mean? And it's too early to tell. But that's where that 14, as opposed to, forget, if they'd beat South Carolina, I don't know where they would have been ranked. I think they would have been ranked, hell, I don't know. They might have been ranked like 5th. They might have been right above Texas in there, or right below them, right above a one-loss Penn State, like a one-loss A&M. So, but they're at 14, which I think is fair. I don't look right in front. I've got a little issue with Bama, but Bama beat Georgia. But Bama lost to Vandy, and Bama lost to who's their other? They beat Georgia. They lost to Vandy, and they lost to Tennessee. It's wild to me to see Tennessee that far up there, but again, that's where A&M should and would have been had they beat South Carolina. So I'm not complaining. I don't see much there that bothers me. BYU and Boise and SMU, it's like how many teams below them would have played their schedule and be undefeated, or in SMU's case, 8-1. I think there's a lot of them. I think there's a lot of teams in the country that would be undefeated on BYU's schedule. I think there's a ton of teams that most teams would be 7-1 on Boise's schedule. They did barely lose last second game to number 1 Oregon, right? Those teams to me are still, they're a little fraudulent, but where they're at is actually okay, other than I think BYU's high at 9. Boise, SMU 12-13, you know, they're around the 2-loss A&M, LSU, Ole Miss, like, okay, that's fine. I hate that SMU's in a major conference and they don't play anybody.
Yep.
I root for SMU. I think that's a cool story. I watch them with the eyeball test and they look good. But I hate that they're in the ACC and there's no Clemson and there's no Miami on their schedule. It's stupid. And the way it's set up is one of these teams is going to miss the title game and skirt playing anybody. So that part of it irks me a little bit. But I don't really have much of an issue with the way the playoff rankings came out. I think they did a good enough job. I don't know, would I flip-flop Ohio State and Georgia? I think they got some of the same type issues. But, you know, Ohio State's loss was a last-second loss at Oregon. And their big win, obviously, was against a team that's in Penn State that's sitting at what? Where are Penn State sitting at 6? They're just slightly better than what Georgia's done in winning at Texas and losing a really close game to Alabama. So this stuff's going to sort itself out, though, with these SEC teams. And I think some of these other teams, these undefeateds, this Indiana, BYU, Notre Dame, Boise, SMU thing, that's going to sort itself out, too, with the exception of Indiana, because I think they'll lose one.
Is it this weekend they have Ohio State?
And then if they lose that, I think they're still going to be in because they're going to be 11-1 and get to miss that title game, and they're not going to keep them out.
That's something we talked about earlier, is that the title game, keeping a team out for losing, and the title game, keeping somebody in for not playing in it, is an interesting dynamic in this new world of college football. Because if A&M were to get to the title game, and lose and not get in, and if you're Tennessee sitting outside in and you're getting in, you know, like it's a better position to be in at 2 losses.
They're going to have to make a referendum, and they're going to have to just really send a message. And this is the year I think they need to do it, to say, we are not going to, particularly within the conference, you know, like you're Ole Miss, I'm Tennessee. Like, if we don't play each other, but I go to the SEC title game and I lose to number 3 Georgia, and you're sitting at home, that team got to the title game. So that is their 3rd loss. Their end of the regular season in the same conference, they were 10-2. Ole Miss was 10-2. Tennessee had to play an extra game against, you have to really factor that in. So unless you go in there and get blown out and look bad, it's got to
mean something.
Got to help you to have played in that game.
Yes.
It's got to be a positive. And
it shouldn't hurt you.
It definitely shouldn't hurt you. It definitely shouldn't hurt you. And it should almost be treated to me as a bonus of, yes, you can lock up your spot or you can play your way up depending on how you perform in here. But it shouldn't be like you're at risk of falling out. But we know the reality is it will be. Let's say Texas A&M. Let's say the Aggies beat Auburn and Texas and get in, okay? And they play Georgia, and they lose a competitive game to Georgia. You're going to have a 2-loss Texas who have beaten nobody. Like, imagine a 10-3 A&M against a 10-2 Texas.
Who you just beat.
Where A&M's losses were to Notre Dame, Georgia, and South Carolina. And their wins were Missouri, who's ranked, LSU, and Texas just a couple weeks earlier. You beat them. And Texas's best win, Texas will have played like 2 teams that are ranked in that playoff poll and been 0-2 against them, including the team you're measuring them up against. How on earth, other than politics and brand, would Texas get in over A&M? I don't see a world where that would even be remotely justifiable. So that one is where Texas might find themselves in some trouble. But then what if there's a 10-2 well, I guess Ole Miss at 10-2 wouldn't. Let's say A&M lost a close one to Tennessee, and there's a 10-2 Ole Miss there that beat Georgia. Who's like a 10-2 Ole Miss that beat Georgia recently, like that, versus a 10-3 A&M that lost to Georgia. That's where things start to get complicated and convoluted. Or if Georgia beats Tennessee and you have a 10-2 Tennessee sitting there. The really interesting one would be, I think A&M, if they got into the SEC title game, would somehow find their way into this thing. Especially if you look and you say they're sitting at 14 now. They're like the second team out. And you would have a win on the road at Auburn. You'd have a win over number 5 Texas. And then in theory, a loss to number 3 Georgia. I don't see how that combination,
keeps you
just
up.
Playing Georgia, representing the SEC in the title game, and beating Texas, doesn't move you up 2 spots into the field.
And one is before we hit a break, South Carolina, if they're sitting at 9-3, that loss, even though it looks bad score-wise,
if they beat Clemson, and
it feels a little bit.
Here's my other thing before we go to break.
Yep.
The interesting one would be if LSU won out and A&M won out and A&M played LSU and LSU beat A&M, because I think people would start going, well, their one big win got negated because they ended up losing to them, and LSU would actually claim one of those precious spots by winning the SEC that otherwise they wouldn't. So now you got LSU in. You would have an 11-1 in that theory, Georgia that didn't get in the title game, they're in. And then you'd have Tennessee, Ole Miss, and Texas. So A&M would somehow probably have to slide in ahead of all them.
I am not sure that Georgia's going to make it to 11-1 because I'm a little worried about this game for them.
I agree with you.
We'll hit a break here. Right now, if your organization or business is looking for an opportunity to engage with Aggies, then you need to check out the Association of Former Students that bring Aggies of all ages together during marquee events held throughout the year. These events include Aggie Ring Day, All Aggie Hullabaloo. You've got The Gathering. They all welcome tens of thousands of guests, and there are many sponsorship and vendor opportunities available to get your brand in front of those attendees. They offer a wide variety of both digital and in-person options to promote your brand. These options include title sponsorship naming, on-site presence, activation, recognition in social media posts, and much, much more. There's also advertising opportunities in both the Texas Aggie Magazine and the Aggie News newsletter, which are seen by over 230,000 people. So if your business is ready to engage with Aggies, choose a partner that's been with the organization supporting the Aggie Network for over 140 years. For more information on options available throughout the association, please email sponsorships@aggienetwork.com. It is the Association of Former Students. As a reminder, the final segment of the show is brought to you by Double Dave's. That's at 10:50. But right now, caller number 12, 979-693-1150. We're going to hook you up with your choice of a dozen pepperoni rolls or a large one-topping pizza from Double Dave's. They've been serving Aggieland since 1984. They have your favorite pizza and, of course, those world-famous pepperoni rolls, reliable in-house delivery, bringing piping hot goodness straight to your door. Just click on doubledaves.com and your favorites are on their way. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Billy with us here for another segment. So we haven't had a chance for you to react to the unfortunate news that we knew was certainly possible on Saturday when we saw it happen live. But Le'Veon Moss, done for the year, huge blow, and now the Aggies have to adjust for the remainder of the season.
Adjust is an understatement, right? It's almost like they have to recover. I mean, you know, you don't, and when you're coaches and it's a team and it moves on, and teams lose great players all the time, and they really do, but some are harder to replace than others. And thank God you've got Amari Daniels and his experience and what he's proved it again the other night. But the reality is, Le'Veon Moss he was playing at an all SEC level. He's an NFL running back. He wears on defenses. He pops long runs as the game wears on. He's a tone setter. He sets this physicality tone. He's tough. Does a tremendous job of reading the blocks, and he wears on a defense. And he elevates, I think, just the bully nature of this offense. And he's your offensive MVP. He's been the best player on this team this year, in my opinion. The list, like, if I'm just sitting there thinking about it, it's like, is Nick Scorton on there? Is Randy Bond on there? Is Chase Besantis and Trey Zune, are they on there up front? But, I mean, the best guy, week in and week out, in my opinion, has been Le'Veon Moss. So you lost your best player. So that hurts. It's going to hurt any team ever. It especially hurts this one because of what he means, I think, to their offensive identity.
Yep.
And then their ability to wear on teams in the second half. And then what that opens up for Marcel Reed, for the passing game. When Connor was on against Missouri, Le'Veon was explosive. Like, it's just, it's a crippling hit potentially. Yep. But this is where Amari Daniels, and so the other thing is Amari got that, like, whether it was 5, 6, 8, 10 carries behind him, so they didn't have much fall off, and then you're hitting them with that change of pace. They've lost that ability too. So Amari, E.J. Smith have got to step up. We don't know enough about E.J. I know people have opinions because he hasn't popped like long runs, but he also hasn't gotten much of an opportunity.
He had a couple popped runs that were called back because of holding or something.
Yeah, early
He's had
in
a
the
couple.
season. Yeah. I saw it in fall camp, but I just hadn't seen it. He just hasn't had very many opportunities. Yeah. So sometimes guys step up, especially in the college level, but Amari's got to. He's proven, look, what did he run for against LSU? What were those numbers? You can look it up while I'm talking. He had a really good game against LSU. He was spectacular. And
he led them in rushing.
Yeah, and the guy can do that. Like, if he can put together that type game for a couple weeks, he can be a hero of this football team. Amari Daniels, if I'm
91 yards, 12 carries.
91 yards, 12 carries. Yeah, if I'm sitting there and I'm him, I'm like, you know what? Like, I've watched him break a 70-yard run against Auburn to ice the game. I've watched him with a 56-yarder last week against South Carolina. He runs tough. He's physical. It is not like he led the team in rushing last year with almost 700 yards quietly. It's in there. We see it consistently. Now he's just you got to be like, hey, dude, for 2 games and hopefully 3, you need to just decide that if we give you the ball 20 times, you're going to go out there and be a badass, and you're going to go 20 for 90, or 20 for 100. Average 5. If you average 6, great. But like he is, you've got to, and maybe he will as he gets more touches, because I think it's a great opportunity, and I do think it's interesting that Amari Daniels is the one guy people weren't talking about in the running back stable. They were interested in EJ. They were like, okay, we got Ruben and Le'Veon. Well, you don't have him anymore. And maybe Ruben, Elko kind of squashed the enthusiasm on that. But if they reach a playoff, it wouldn't surprise me at all if we saw Ruben Owens. So, I mean, that playoff is 6 weeks from now when the game's played. So there's something potentially there down the road, but they got to win.
You got to get there.
You got to win these next few games. And in order to do that, they're going to have to ride Amari Daniels, and Amari Daniels is going to have to look at Le'Veon and the rest of that offense and say, I got this. And they might move somebody to the backfield. I'm sure they will this week, and everybody's talking about Bussy.
Well, there was a tweet about it from, who was it? Feldman? Somebody had a tweet there.
I saw that. That wasn't Feldman. It was, I'm picturing his face, not Thamel. Maybe it was Thamel, but whoever. But was he right or was he wrong? Like, if there's a defensive back, there's options. You know, like Javon Thomas was a really good tailback at South Oakland, actually really good. Helped them win a state title. Bravion Rogers played there. Dalton Brooks really was. I don't know. That guy's too good on defense.
Yeah.
You don't. That to me. And I'll sit here and say, hey, I'm shocked. I'd be shocked if it was Dalton Brooks because to me,
he's that good.
Dalton Brooks is such a big part of safety. Now, maybe you could play with it this week and say, hey, you're the emergency guy. You're not going to play offense at all unless, you know, we go to DEFCON 1. We're at DEFCON 2 right now. But I don't think he's too big a part of your defense. And even if you're practicing him, then you run the risk of him getting tackled and hurt.
I think it would be maybe a DB that isn't playing as much. That would be the thought process.
Yeah. Like I said, like a Javon Thomas or Bravion Rod. But, I mean, even then, Javon's played a lot of corner this year. Just haven't seen as much of him. You know, he had gotten hurt at some point. But
we got to hit a break here in a second.
We got Hutton coming on.
Yeah, but let me just ask you this, because all the more reason get healthy on that offensive line.
Yeah.
Get Chase Basantas back. I think it makes such a major difference to the running game.
No doubt. And just, have them be the ones to say, we'll pick up the slack.
Right.
We'll get you some holes tomorrow. You just hit them.
And he will hit them.
He will.
Thank you, Billy.
All right.
Appreciate you.
See ya.
We'll hit a break. We'll come back with Jonathan Hutton of OutKick. Right now we're talking about Heritage Films. YourHeritageFilm.com is the website. They make documentary films about your family, about your mom, your dad, your grandfather, your family business, your family ranch, things that are important to you. That's what Chance McClain does. And he is the single most creative guy that I know. And he just makes these awesome movies, 8 to 10 weeks. He's a slave to the process. He wants to get it right. And he's advertising with just a handful of guys, right? Michael Berry's show in Houston, TexAgs, because he knows we care about our history. We care about our story. That's why most of his clients are Aggies. The website, yourheritagefilm.com, 713-893-8341. 713-893-8341 is Heritage Films. We're back here on TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We're in the Rollo Insurance Studios. Should be joined by Jonathan Hutton here momentarily on the Boss Firearms Hotline. Appreciate all the text messages there on the Little Sluggers text line. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. I know Sam has some vibes for us to get going this segment.
Yes. So Sam, 21, is this the one you're talking about?
Yep.
He says, good morning, y'all. Unhappy with the last weekend of Aggie sports and how football, men's basketball, and women's basketball turned out. However, if that did have to happen for last night to turn out the way it did, then I'll take it. Make America great again and gig 'em.
Well, my computer just went crazy there.
Yeah.
Anyway.
What you watching there, David?
I have our show on so I can comment to our subscribers and our people. That's what I do, but I have it on mute typically. I think one of the things that I provide this show, Nick, is that I talk to our people during the show, which sometimes gets me into trouble when I respond and Billy's telling me something that I didn't hear what he said. So there's a good and a bad to it. There's, the balance. Oh, look at that. We're already getting started. Jonathan Hutton on the program here. Sorry we're a few minutes late, man. I appreciate you making a few minutes for us here on the show.
Nuño, great to be back on with you guys. I love everything you do at the site and of course with TexAgs Radio. So it's great to be back on.
I appreciate you, man. I feel like it's been a minute since we've spoken. Usually during this, but you know what? Usually during the football season, A&M, well, usually since I've known you, A&M football hasn't been up to par. This year, A&M has been up to par, except this past weekend. So just kind of give me your version of A&M football 2024 under Mike Elko.
Pretty damn good. Like that, like good, not great, but a chance to reach the level that we haven't seen yet, to your point. But I've been high on A&M. Like I follow you and Liucci. Like you guys know, the fan base knows what's possible there. I kind of I became hooked when what was it, 2.5 years ago for the Bama game, 2-loss Aggies team taking on Bryce Young and company, and look, winning. So yeah, I'm hooked on just the atmosphere there altogether, and I think it's going to be a great possibility for hosting a college football playoff game. I can't wait for this.
Look, we've harped all week long on the lack of tackling against South Carolina, and that was a huge issue. I don't expect that to happen again. I'm not saying A&M is going to win out. I'd love to see, and I can make a case for why they could, right?
Sure.
But the lack of tackling is what right now is what I think about. But in reality, in 9 games this season, this has been a really good defense. 8 of the 9 games has been a really good defense. In that game, they just couldn't tackle.
Well, I mean, there's always that's kind of I think that's the definition of how I would describe college football this year. Mm-hmm. There's always got that kind of one game for every team. If it's not tackling, it's Will Howard sliding down against Oregon, right? Like there's always something in these games as to why you can point and say, yeah, it's a brain freeze or a coaching moment, time management, turnovers, fundamentals. Look, Beamer's always got one of those games in him. We all knew that if, for instance, Kiffin isn't going to win the top games. He just doesn't do that, but he's going to beat the crap out of Arkansas last week because he's got Georgia this week. So it's just the ebbs and flows of the season. And look at it from this perspective. Based on what we saw in the committee and what they did last night, I don't think a 2-loss SEC team is missing this playoff. So there's no reason why A&M can't be that team out of the SEC. They were that team up until last week.
So I'm glad you brought Ole Miss there because it's interesting how I change my mind on them so often.
Me too.
Throughout the years, right? But you're right. When it comes to a big game, Lane Kiffin doesn't find a way to win. But I look at that game against Georgia, I'm like, man, I think Georgia might be vulnerable because that version of Ole Miss I've seen the last 2 or 3 weeks, that team can beat anybody. Then you remind me, yeah, but Lane Kiffin in these games.
It's always, if not now, win. It's kind of like James Franklin. I put Franklin above him just based on the where they are in the hierarchy of the Big Ten and where Kiffin's trying to bring Ole Miss, right? But they're more or less the same type of description when it comes to head coach. And look at I'm with you on Georgia, though. Carson Beck, 11 interceptions over the last 5 games. That's going to bite them. And they've been sleepwalking in some of these games. They're that good to overcome it. But the difference between Bama and Georgia right now, compared to the teams we've seen in the past, Bama has had these games for the last couple of seasons where they have the 12 penalty games, the 12 men on the field coming out of a timeout or to begin a drive. They overcome it because of their quarterback play. And they haven't had that guy consistently. Same thing right now with Georgia, although, it's if not now, win for Ole Miss. And we were kind of saying this about Stetson Bennett a couple years ago going into the playoff. Fan base there didn't want him. He goes in the playoff and, more or less begins the statue run, as I call it. They erect a statue on campus for him eventually. So maybe Carson Beck gets that. Maybe not. Probably not. I'm not betting on that. But I don't know who to bet on this season. And that's certainly not Ole Miss because, again, in these moments, there's something that happens where Kirby Smart normally has his team ready to go when it's time to play up or when a team is trying to play up to them. And they don't punch down, but they do play down for a half or so this season. And I think Kirby will have his team ready to go. And I think, we saw some of the best from Ole Miss against South Carolina and Arkansas. And when it comes to taking that next step or hitting that next hurdle, normally it's close, but it's not truly getting over the hump, much like Penn State.
Hutton, do you look at Diego Pavia as, okay, he's a college football celebrity, right? He's a star in college football, but is he a Nashville star? Like, does he walk around town and there's Pavia? Like, is it not Johnny Mania like we had here in College Station, but is there a level of he's a big star in that market?
It should be. The problem is it's Vanderbilt, and they haven't put anything behind their athletic programs. Not since they've done these stadium renovations. This came out of nowhere. And I think if Diego Pavia is walking down Broadway, he looks more like a country music star right now than he does a quarterback of the SEC. So, he's certainly going to make his presence known. Dude's an alpha at any setting. I would love to have him on any team. But he needs to be appreciated more than what he is. And, case in point, last night, they don't even have Vanderbilt in the top 25. It's the loss to Georgia Southern isn't ideal, but then they beat number 1 Alabama, beat Kentucky. They open the season against Virginia Tech. That's a win. They play Texas. Right now, that's Texas's best win. That's crazy to think about, but where they are in the AP top 25 and how they played Bama, it's helping Texas, but I think it's a slap in the face to Vandy because, again, Bama's in the college football playoff right now, and the Longhorns point to that. But Pavia is the great story that no one's really talking about, and it deserves more than what it's been.
I don't see a scenario where the Longhorns don't get into the playoffs, even if A&M beats them, and I still think they're in the playoffs. But what do you think about Texas? What they mean to the SEC, some of the arrogance that people warned you about potentially, and what you've actually seen, and the team itself?
Horns down. Let's see. I'm surprised that they haven't been able to truly put it all together. I was surprised by the performance against Georgia and I wasn't surprised by Oklahoma's matchup against the Vols. For instance, I felt like Texas had already opened up the SEC play. I'm see if you agree against Mississippi State, but the game against Georgia was really the game, right. And they didn't step up to that moment. But last year we saw them do it against Alabama on the road. This year we saw them do it on the road in the Big House. You've got more situations where they can play well, and it's going to come down to the final game, which is going to be awesome. But I tend to believe that there's still one more bad game with Ewers, and we see Manning. So maybe I'm totally in the dark there, but I still think it's a Manning type storyline if they get to the college football playoff, and I think that's what's best for me and everybody in the SEC to have a Manning back in as a starter. Ewers onto the NFL, but there's always that there's one or two games with Ewers where I just don't. I don't think Texas makes the run through the college football playoff based on the inconsistencies there.
Hutton, I appreciate you, man. One of my favorites, man. Thanks for making a few minutes for us.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I always enjoy this, and I'll keep watching.
All right, man. I will too. Take care. Jonathan Hutton here.
All right, brother.
See you, buddy.
See you.
On TexAgs Live. We'll hit a break. We'll come back with some final thoughts. Right now, Milliken Reserve, Farm to Table Community in College Station. They got homes, trails, farms, and wide open spaces with a mission to build a healthy community around nature. They've got 2,600 acres of open space, 30 miles of trails and homes. They connect families to nature and to each other. They have an extensive network of trails throughout a wooded landscape that includes walking and equestrian paths, creeks and ponds, and gathering areas. They are committed to maintaining and restoring that natural habitat, and they have all the animals you can imagine: white-tailed deer, songbirds, rabbits, and turtles. Learn more at millikenreserve.com. That website, again, is millikenreserve.com. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner Shields, Rollo Insurance Studio. Got Ethan Jones with us with some stats. So I don't know if I want you to do these stats because you're making me depressed about some of this. Can you give me like maybe a short depression and a happy stat?
Yeah.
Because I mean, this is like, you make me want to punch myself in the face.
Hear me out. The depression, there's actually happiness layered in the depression.
Okay.
I'll show you how. So South Carolina and Notre Dame, our two losses, we had similar issues in both. I'm going to show you some of them. So missed tackles, we've talked about that a lot. 25 in South Carolina, 19 versus Notre Dame. But the average and win is 8.9. Sacks, we had 0 South Carolina, 0 Notre Dame. Average and wins is 2.6. Rushing yards allowed, we had 286 versus South Carolina, our highest on the year. 198 versus Notre Dame, our second highest. Average and win, 92. Rushing yards was both really low compared to our average, 144 in South Carolina, 146 in Notre Dame. Average and win, 232.3. Also, big rushes, 10-plus yard rushes, 4 versus South Carolina, 3 versus Notre Dame. Average is 6.4 in wins. Turnover margin, we had a -1 turnover margin versus South Carolina, -2 in wins. We've had an average of 1.1 turnover margin. And then finally, third down conversion rate, 26.7 versus South Carolina, 30.8 versus Notre Dame, but average and win 46.7. And so, yeah, that sounds kind of down, but the positive is these things that we did bad in South Carolina and Notre Dame, we're typically really good at. Like in the 7 wins, we've been really good at stopping the run. We've been really good at rushing the ball. We've been pretty good with missed tackles, sacks. So hopefully this
What was that
not,
number again? 8 points, so 9 compared to basically 22.5 against.
Yeah, imagine if we had only 9 missed tackles in South Carolina game. I think we win that.
I said it from the beginning of this week. If that number's 17, 18, 19, more like the Notre Dame game, I think that game plays out differently. But again, it didn't happen. So bottom line is, make tackles and good things happen.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. Thank you, Ethan. Appreciate you. That's going to do it for TexAgs Live here on a Wednesday. Tomorrow on the program, Ryan Bronner is going to be hosting. Fan Show, Jim Turner, McGee, Swope, Pablo Escobar, and of course your text messages and phone calls.
How many birds are you going to get? Make a prediction.
How many birds am I going to get? 2, but I'm going to try for 80.
I'll take the under.
That was very rude. You know what? Just for that, you're going to push you in the shoulder. TexAgs Live.